So Donald Trump shows up in East Palestine, Ohio, bringing food, water, and Big Macs. I kid you not. He apparently came out and said, we're going to get everybody some McDonald's. And I appreciate it, man. I'm watching this video of Trump. He's getting a hero's welcome. He's getting a presidential welcome. And he is actually helping people. Call it whatever you want. Call it a photo op. Call it opportunism. Call it campaigning. Don't know. Don't care. If I see the president of the United States leave this country to Ukraine with $500 million in cash for a foreign country and ignore the people of this country, I'm going to look to anybody who's helping it out, which is why I've repeatedly given a shout out to Benny Johnson, who showed up and gave out $20,000. He did more than Joe Biden did. And he's just some internet guy. Donald Trump actually showed up. Means a lot. So we're going to talk about that and a whole lot more. Joe Biden, once again, fell up the stairs. I'm not kidding. Joe Biden literally fell up the stairs again. Okay, we got a bunch of other stories too. So we'll get into all this. But the big story right now, obviously, is East Palestine, Donald Trump, the presidency, politics, and all that stuff. So we're going to get into all that. Before we get started, head over to timcast.com to become a member and support our work. Go there at timcast.com. Click that little join us button in the left. Become a member. Tonight around 10:10 or so, after we wrap the live stream, we will have a live members-only show. So we initially would pre-record the members-only segment, put it up for members, but now it is live because we figured it out. And we are working on a private Discord for members, meaning a private chat for people who want to hang out and chat 24/7. And then this will be the chat room for the live members only show with the ability to bring in callers so you can ask our guests questions as well. I think that was a brilliant idea. That was Ian's idea to do call-ins. I think that was brilliant. It adds a new dynamic to the show. So we do the main show, we hang out, we talk. Then afterwards, those who want to hang out and watch additionally, and maybe have more questions, we can actually get you on to talk with the guests. I think it's going to be really great. So again, become a member at timcast.com. Hopefully we'll have that whole system up and running by next week. For the time being, we don't have the live chat set up. We just have the live members only, but we're getting there. And with your support, we're going to do more awesome stuff. So smash that like button, subscribe to this channel, share the show with your friends. Joining us tonight to talk about this and so much more is Mark Ousley.
Hello. Thanks for having me, man.
Who are you, good sir?
Well, I am host of the Unwokeable podcast at Unwokeable Pod on YouTube, Twitter. Citizen journalist and probably the least famous person to be on Timcast IRL, but I appreciate being here.
Well, I mean, we've had like specialists and
Yeah,
but
no
followers. You know?
No, yeah. So I got a few followers, but I mainly do work with education and advocacy for kids and students in Oklahoma, red state. So
right on.
Yeah.
Well, glad to have you. Should be fun. We also got Phil Labonte hanging out.
I follow you, Mark. Hi, what's up? I am Phil from All That Remains. Phil That Remains on Twitter, and I'm here to give my opinion. Here we go.
Hi, everyone. Ian Crossland. Last night I said some harsh things about Donald Trump, one of which, I should say, I don't like talking about people when they're not here. I want to say anything I would say about someone, I will say to your face when I see you, Donald. I said that I called you a liar.
I love you. Never change. Please never change.
I called you a liar. I think that just because you told a lie in the past doesn't mean that you are a liar still. It means that you lied. So I'm not going to judge you or call you names or any of that. I want to meet you. Thank God what you're doing in East Palestine right now, brother. And we can go from there. We'll get deeper into that on the show if you guys wanna. We got Serge Dupre on the buttons.
Yes. Nice, Ian. I like that. That was cool. I'm excited to say that me and Phil will be on Pop Culture Crisis tomorrow.
Yes, we will.
Sweet. So check that out. Ready to start the show when you are.
All right. We got this story from timcast.com. Trump receives presidential welcome from East Palestine officials. Renders relief amid Biden's absence from region. Trump. This is really America right here. We are standing in America. And boy, is he correct. Former President Donald Trump has traveled to East Palestine to survey the damage and recovery efforts following the 38-car derailment of a Norfolk Southern train carrying hazardous materials. Officials from East Palestine welcomed the former president, with the chief of the East Palestine Fire Department offering him a briefing one might expect President Joe Biden to receive were he not otherwise occupied in foreign territories. Who wrote this one? Brett McDonald. I love the it's kind of a jab without being a jab. It's just a factual statement. Check out how the Daily Wire wrote it up. I love this one. From Daily Mail. I know this menu better than all of you. Trump orders Big Macs for East Palestine first responders and himself after delivering 13 pallets of food and Trump water to families betrayed by Biden after toxic train disaster.
You're betrayed by Biden.
I'm sorry, man. Where's the picture of the... This is great. Trump's standard McDonald's order, 2 Big Macs, 2 Filet-O-Fish, and a chocolate shake. That is horrible.
Wow.
The Filet-O-Fish is like delicious, by the way,
yeah.
but that's a lot of food for one person to eat. Where's the picture of the Trump water? They got Trump water on it. Look at this. Trump water. I love it.
Of course.
This is what I absolutely love about Trump. He will come down and he will help all of these desperate people, and he will slap his name on the water bottle.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Well, to be fair, this is what really annoyed me during the Trump administration, among many other things. They would mock Trump over Trump Water, Trump Magazine, and Trump Steak. And what they wouldn't tell you is that these were brand products for his golf resorts.
Yep.
So when you go to Walmart and they've got the Walmart brand, it's good, great value, whatever. When you go to a grocery store and they have their name, that's all it is. They were acting like Trump was selling Trump water in grocery stores. So I went to Trump Doral once, and they were all the liberals were like, Trump water went out of business and Trump Magazine is gone. I walk in the hotel room and I look down at the table and there's Trump Magazine and a bottle of Trump water, and I'm like, what are these people talking about? These are companies that Donald Trump owns that provide these materials to his resorts. So Trump has a bunch of these water bottles, probably from a bunch of different resort properties. And he said, grab what we got, ship it out.
Everybody knows that you go into a hotel and there's bottles of water.
And it'll have the hotel's brand name on it. Typically, not always, depending on the tier, the star rating or whatever. But Trump has pallets of water at these hotels and just said, load up on my truck, we'll pay for shipping, and then we can give these to people who need them. Win, 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 win for everybody.
Yep.
Well, anything they can do to make him look bad, that's what they're going to do, and they'll stretch the truth or just outright lie about it. But one thing I did like about this was that this is the first sign that I've seen of 2015, 2016 Trump.
Oh yeah,
in a long time, because he's been really out of the loop. He was kicked off Twitter, kicked off Facebook. That's not his fault, but that left him unconnected from what made him president. And so this is the first signs of life I've seen, going back to that kind of old school, what made him president in 2015.
I don't see anything negative about what he just did. This is amazing. Has there been negative? Has there been lash?
I'm not seeing any. What can the corporate press say about Trump right now to bring him down?
It's rough.
They better just keep their
Trump
mouths
water.
shut. Yeah, but here's the thing. If they come out, and I'm sure they could come up with something to attack Trump over, but all that would serve to do is highlight that Trump is there and Biden is not. And where's Buttigieg? Did he show up?
No.
Yeah. You know what? I don't care if it's a photo op. I literally don't care. He brought water with him. By all means, if a photo op means people in need get the help they need, then that's better leadership than what Biden is offering.
I certainly wouldn't call it a photo op. It'd be a photo op if he was there looking around and they took pictures. But he's giving people life sustenance.
Right. He's also giving them air. He's giving them airtime that they normally wouldn't get. And that's been the problem right now. We were all talking about Chinese balloons while this was happening. And I'm sure that's a serious thing, but it seemed to overshadow this giant problem that was going on in Ohio, and that nobody was talking about until well after the fact. And so I commend him if it is a photo op, because it shines a light on the problem.
Let's say it's a photo op. Biden couldn't give a damn to take a picture.
Yeah.
Biden couldn't show up for 10 minutes, get a picture, and leave. He could not even do that. Ukraine's very important. How many people in the United States can point to Ukraine on a map?
Yeah.
How many people in the United States can name 3 cities in Ukraine, or any? What do they say? Oblast? Is that the territories they use? I don't know. States. Most people don't even know what it is or where it is.
Nope.
And many of these people are flying the flag. But I tell you this: ask somebody where Ohio is. To be honest, a lot of people might not know where Ohio is, but most Americans probably do, and they know it is America. And my question is just, why are my tax dollars going to Ukraine and not to East Palestine?
This is all good for Trump. There's no downside to this. And everything that President Biden is doing right now is at best only popular with the Democrats and with his base. And so I just you can't criticize Trump for any of the stuff he's doing. It's all, like you said, 2016 Trump. It's all good Trump. It's all exactly what he needs. And even the remarks he's making, and the he's being that funny kind of same dude that people that like Trump really like.
The everyman Trump.
Yeah.
Even though he's a billionaire, right?
Yep.
That he can connect with people that aren't billionaires. And that's, he grew up in New York, and that's part of that culture. And so I think that's what's been missing from his campaign and from his persona, since he's really been cut off from the American people in the way that made him popular in the first place.
My favorite story was the well-done steak with ketchup and how the corporate press attacked him for it. Those that are longstanding fans of the show have heard me mention the story probably a dozen times, but Trump was ragged on by CNN because he ordered it was like a 30-day dry aged steak, well done with ketchup. And I'm just like, a lot of lower and working class people who get steaks from the grocery store that are not high quality will cook it through and splash ketchup on it because they can't afford a 30-day dry-aged filet mignon or whatever. Donald Trump was basically signaling to regular working people he ate the way they ate, and they mocked him for it. And when they went on TV and said, Donald Trump, what an idiot for doing this, the people sitting at home were cutting into their well-done steak with ketchup going, "Why, you're making fun of me. Like, I'm literally doing this right now." Trump knew how to play him. This is what we need to see more of, but I want to show you this too. This one matters. This story right here from WTAE ABC. Giant eagle pulls water bottled near East Palestine from store shelves. Now, why is that? Why would a grocery store remove water bottles from a spring that was near East Palestine from their store shelves? Why would they stop selling water that was near this toxic waste dump if the water is safe to drink? The water's fine. That's what they said. And the air is fine. But this store won't sell you the water? You know what? I'll tell you this. If the government comes out and tells you the water's safe and then you drink it and you get sick, why would they care? If you sue them, they're giving you your money back to you. It's your tax dollars. Oh, no, we got sued. Here's your money back. Here's the money we took from you back. Now, if Giant Eagle gets sued, that's their profits. That's coming out of their shareholders' pockets. So what I see is when the private sector says get the water off the shelves, they're seeing something wrong. When the government says everything's fine, go ahead and drink the water, they're probably lying.
Who was it that did the video where they drag
J.D. Vance?
J.D. Vance drag a stick across the bottom of a river and you see all the oils and chemicals come up to the surface and these colored rainbow. Yeah, okay, that's still in the muck.
Well, and what does this mean when you talk about water? You're talking about food too.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
I mean,
animals,
the farmland and
chicken's
everything
dead.
that's out all around there, but just the food, the crops that are going to grow around this place that would go out to probably grocery stores all over the country and definitely in Ohio. What does it mean for the food supply?
Fortunately, I don't think it's going to be that bad relative to what nuclear holocaust or like Chernobyl, because what I'm reading about the chemicals is that they have a very short half-life. Like what was the main one? Vinyl chloride has like a 2.3 day half-life. So after a week, you've got about 15% of this, 25% of the chemicals. No, after a week, you've got like 12.5% of it left in the air. And then after a few more days, you've got like 6% of it left. So we've already seen 98% of the vinyl chloride disperse out of the air. It's really, their concern is the benzenes. If there were a lot of benzenes in the fires, they said there were not. The official report is that it was benzene residue. I don't know if you should necessarily believe the official report, but when benzene burns, it creates dioxins, which are persistent, and those can stay in the air and in the soil for a long time, as far as I've read.
Ryan Ellis super chatted saying Politico's already attacking him. And so Politico has this semi-roundabout attack on Trump. It says Trump's visit to Ohio derailment gives Biden's team some breathing room. Mm-hmm. His planned appearance near the scene of this month's toxic derailment has Democrats pointing to his past efforts to roll back train and chemical regulations. And there it is. The corporate press will find a way to make it a negative thing for Trump. Man.
I think
just get some people some burgers, man.
I think it's more indicative of the fact that we spent a year and a half calling everything but infrastructure, right? I mean, if there was a problem with the rail yard and we're doing this giant infrastructure bill and you've got Democrats coming out and calling, underwater basket weaving classes infrastructure, right? That you saw a lot of that. So you had a lot of this pork that passed the $1.2 trillion worth of money going towards things that had nothing to do with infrastructure. And this is what comes of that. So they're going to try to spin it back on him. But weren't we supposed to be fixing the railways? Weren't we supposed to be doing that?
Do you think that if Biden or Buttigieg showed up, they'd boo him out?
Yes.
Like, just yell at him?
At this point, I don't know. It depends on what they should. If they showed up with huge pallets and pallets of water and food, probably not.
You wouldn't see Buttigieg or Biden do that.
Why was Biden has not gone? Is it a health risk?
72% of this district, 72% of this district voted for Trump.
Right, and I just want to point out Ian's persistent, with all due respect, naivete in terms of who these people really are. And often on the show you'll talk about pardoning people or giving them the benefit of the doubt. And it's like, yo, man, when people tell you who they are, believe them. When Joe Biden sneaks off to Ukraine with $500 million and ignores this disaster in its entirety, and then outright, he didn't even address it. His people are like, you're not coming there. Buttigieg doesn't even show up. He's telling you outright he does not care about regular working class Americans.
But
Period.
what I wonder is who's decided. I think of Biden on a leash. When I think about Biden, I don't think he's making the decisions about whether or not he goes to East Palestine. I feel like someone's like, no, it's too risky for your condition, Joe. You can't breathe that air and you're 84 years old.
But they're telling us that they're safe? Yeah, they're
that's
bad
weird.
people. They're evil people.
I'd like to know when this trip was planned. You know, was it just a last minute thing to
For Trump?
No, for
I bet it's
for,
been a
for
while.
Biden. Yeah, I mean,
Ukraine.
you would think that it would have to be planned in a while, but if it wasn't, that could be an indication that maybe this was an effort to get eyes away.
Oh.
You know what I'm saying? I don't know.
Felt
Oh,
like,
I see.
Yeah.
I had the feeling that it had been on track for a while. No one knew about it, but they were like just gonna do it on this day anyway. And then the East Palestine thing was inconvenient to talk about because it was in the way. But you make a good point. Maybe they were just like,
Yeah.
we need to divert eyes to something now. Go
We need
hug
another Chinese
Zelensky.
balloon, right?
Yep.
Did he take Hunter with him
Yeah.
over there to
I don't think he
Ukraine?
did, but-
no. Oh,
The
Oh,
more
how
the more
disappointing.
distraction he can generate from this.
Exactly.
$500 million, man. That would, the people who live near this train derailment, that train company probably should compensate them for the fair market value of their properties before the damage.
Absolutely.
And they can keep the property. But ain't nobody buying those houses now.
Right.
So what do we get? Donald Trump, he shows up. There's a lot of things. He'd be playing golf right now. But this is where I think he's getting back into the swing of things. And I got to be honest, there's a lot of things Trump do that I chuckle at, roll my eyes at. But when I saw this video of him coming down there, I got a warm, fuzzy feeling inside. I'm like, at least someone's doing something. I don't care if Trump doesn't care. Maybe he's just like, here's a great opportunity to get attention. And I'm like, wow, he thinks that helping the American people will make people like him. Joe Biden just left. He didn't even care that much.
Just like you said, even if it is just a photo op, he's still actually like putting food in people's bellies and giving people water.
What I'm saying as well is Trump, if it is a photo op, he's thinking to himself, this will make people like me.
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
He wants people to like him. He has a concern about whether or not the American people like him. Joe Biden doesn't.
No.
He's just gone.
Yep.
He doesn't.
I don't know, man.
Biden doesn't seem to care about what anybody thinks, as long as he's keeping his far left flank happy. And
Well,
and maybe
can
he doesn't even care about that.
We're gonna make fun of Joe Biden because we have this story from the New York Post. It's big news, breaking news from 11:57 a.m. Biden stumbles up Air Force One stairs again, leaving Poland. That's karma. That's someone. I think Carpe Donktum made a meme where Trump throws his hat in East Palestine and then it boomerangs around and hits Biden. He falls up the stairs. This is what we get, ladies and gentlemen. Your president not only abandoning the American people, visiting foreign countries, and then falling up the stairs. That's your president.
To
ladies
be
and gentlemen.
fair, that's a lot of stairs for a dude that's almost 80.
Yeah, when are they going to build an
He is.
escalator?
An escalator.
What I want to know is, where is SNL on this? I mean, when Gerald Ford fell down the stairs in the 70s when he was president, that's what made Chevy Chase famous, was making fun of Gerald Ford when he fell down the stairs. And it's like, this has happened twice now, and you see nothing from places like SNL or any of the comedians making fun of it.
It's a cult.
It doesn't make any sense to me.
You can't make
Well,
fun of it.
You got
It's a
Babylon
cult.
B. The
Yeah.
Babylon B is tearing it up. They have one of their new articles. Biden promises to get rid of these resort fees. Wait, I'm sorry. Biden promises to get rid of those resort fees by the time World War III starts. Have you seen him tweeting about getting rid of resort fees over the last 3 weeks? Like, these $90 secret fees are ruining America. Under my watch, we'll make sure. And it's like, yeah, are these really your priorities, dude? He's tweeted about it like 3 times in the last 2 weeks. It's really
He has
annoying.
mentioned a couple of
Resort
things that are very silly, like very
Like,
frivolous,
hey,
and
This isn't comedy. This is true.
Yeah.
Resort fees suck.
Like,
I get it,
come on.
but juxtaposed with the Ukrainian stuff in East Palestine, it's like, what is he?
The Babylon Bee wrote this headline: Biden promises to get rid of those resort fees by the time World War III starts. But that's literally what he's saying. It's like he didn't literally say, "I will get rid of these fees before the start of World War III," but World War III is we're on the cusp of a major conflict. He's like, "Don't worry, we're going to get those resort fees down." It's like, what?
Completely tone deaf.
People's whole city is blanketed in this chemical that killed their livestock and is like floating in their water. And then you're like, Mr. President, will you help the poor people of East Palestine? I will, by cutting those resort fees. So when they're evacuating their hometown, it'll be a little cheaper out of their pocket.
Maybe they're not making fun of him falling up the steps because he's old and it's like elder abuse. Whereas
Ageism?
Yeah, whereas like Gerald Ford was still, how old was Ford? Was he like in his early 60s or something?
No, he was. I mean, I think he was in his 50s or something.
So he was
but-
younger, and he was more of just a guy falling down,
right?
Which is a little bit funny.
But again, it is, I guess, a little funny. But when you do it twice, man, I mean, when you do the same thing twice, yeah, SNL should be all over that. And I think Tim is right. You know, it is a cult, and it just says we cannot make fun of the Holy One. We cannot make fun of the person that's carrying our water for us. And it's really sad. It's really sad.
This is what the president is tweeting about right now. Hidden junk fees are taking money out of the pockets of average Americans. Thanks to our efforts, most of the country's largest banks are getting rid of fees for bounced checks. We're going to lower overdraft fees next. Well, that's really great. I mean, cool. Do you have anything to add about the people whose entire city is blanketed in toxic chemicals and whose livestock are dying? I would be interested to hear what you had to say about that one.
I'm curious.
Oh, I'm sorry. Before that, he says, our support for Ukraine will not waver. NATO will not be divided. We will not tire. Oh, NATO. Yeah, he's not talking about us. He's in, what is his, Bucharest? Bucharest 9 leaders have provided critical security assistance. Did he say anything? NATO. Earlier, I was briefed on a winter storm. Okay. Is he just not saying anything? Ukrainian refugees, democracies around the world. Christians in Ash Wednesday. Okay, well, that one's okay. You know, all right, I can respect that one. He's talking about Americans at least. Yo, it's like, to him, none of this even happened.
Did he even mention it once?
Maybe
He has to have mentioned it.
I thought he tweeted about it once, but while he was on his way to Ukraine, right?
Wow.
I mean, that's a
Listen
slap
here.
in the face.
You know, you got a toxic chemical spill. It's a problem. Well, I'll be over in Ukraine giving $500 million from your taxes to a country you can't point to on a map.
I think it was Anna de Armas. There was an actor saying that the age of social media has basically killed the movie star. It's basically, there are no more movie stars now. It's a lot less about the art that you make and more about who you are as a person, because it's a lot more prevalent and obvious now. And it's the same thing with the president. They don't hide behind this visage of like the title. Now you get to see this guy in his daily behavior, and it's insane.
Look. Sorry, man. Just look at this picture. This is worse.
This is like 1970s crap.
This tweet from Joe Biden is worse than nothing. He said, after my speech today, I spoke with EPA Michael Reagan, Sherrod Brown, Bill Johnson, Shapiro, DeWine about our ongoing efforts in East Palestine, Ohio. I reaffirmed my commitment to making sure they have everything they need. Let me give you the latest. And there is a picture of him sitting on the phone in, I don't know where he is, but it's just like, bro, just do nothing and say nothing. Because at the very least, then we can try to imagine what might you have been doing. But to be like, I got on the phone with some guys, told them, just let me know what you need, then got on a plane and flew to Ukraine.
This is worse than a mean tweet.
What is
you know
it
what I mean? This is a tweet of like, I'm just going to placate you. I'm going to say something so I can say I said something, and that's it. You know, I'd rather have an outwardly mean tweet than just something that placates people who are really going through a hard time.
Let's be real. Biden talked to nobody. He probably did nothing. It's a stock photo they probably took of him weeks ago. They probably have a whole library of photos of him doing other things. You've got, remember that picture of him? And it was supposed to be at Camp David, but then people noticed the clock was not daylight savings time. And they're like, hey, wait a minute. This had to have been taken before March or like before November or whatever, proving that either, well, maybe they don't update their clocks, or it was a stock photo of the president. This is probably a stock photo. They bring him in a room and they say, we're going to get a bunch of different photos of you doing different things to use in different moments. I bet the dude has no idea what's going on in Ohio. I bet he's just like, I don't know. They told him to get on a plane and fly to Ukraine.
He tweeted about it yesterday. Rail companies have spent millions of dollars to oppose common sense safety regulations, and it's worked. More than a train derailment, more than a toxic waste spill. It's years of opposition to safety measures coming home to roost. Doesn't mention Ohio, doesn't mention East Palestine.
That's the same talking point as Politico just put out, right? I mean, it's all Trump's fault, basically. Right, because of the regulations, and that seems to Obama did the same thing with Bush, and I'm no fan of Bush, but it was 7 years into his presidency, and he was like, oh well, Bush, right? Something went wrong, it was Bush's fault, and that seems to be what Biden is doing. Anytime he can just say, oh, if it's wrong, it's Trump's fault. It has nothing to do with what I've done. You just go back and look at the previous administration.
Yeah, I expect that out of an administration if they're going to actually do that in conjunction with taking action to help relieve the situation on the ground. If there's going to be I'm not a fan of government anyways, but if there's going to be a government that's if there's going to be an EPA, if there's going to be, a FEMA and stuff, why aren't they helping in the places that in the U.S. that need their help?
Well, and the rail system is the federal government's responsibility. And when you're talking about the chemicals and stuff, this is the EPA. This is what they do.
Yeah,
I was
told.
told.
Go ahead.
I was told that Biden's been offering federal help to the governors, but they haven't been requesting it. He actually says in his tweet, "As I said to your governors, they'll have every resource that they need," indicating that they're available for you, governors, if you need it. But what is it? Is it that the federal government gives a state some sort of FEMA relief, then the state owes the federal government something? Is it like a tit for tat? So the governor's like, I don't want to get involved with federal money. I don't want you breathing down my neck about that thing in the future as a result.
I mean, to some degree, but also we pay taxes, and that's the point of them, so that federal emergency management can come and assist us when things like this happen.
But I would think it would happen with no expectation of something in return.
Well, I think the governor has to declare some kind of state of emergency at some point. But other than that, if he requested the aid, it should be offered. But I don't know. It seems all very, very strange that the federal government didn't jump in at the beginning. It didn't highlight the issue at the beginning. I mean, it seemed like when I first tweeted about it, which was early, right? I was getting, bot replies in my feed saying, "Oh, you need to check your sources on what actually is happening there." And this kind of false narrative of everything is fine. The people of East Palestine are just making a mountain out of a molehill. Everything's okay. And then it turns out absolutely that's not the case. It took J.D. Vance going over there to do it, to show people. But again, we were fed a narrative, or when we were fed a narrative, it turned out to be completely false.
I retweeted the early image of the river, the Ohio River, and then all the potentially affected states through the water table. And I just tweeted the image. I said, I don't know. There's nothing verifying if this is real or not. Get water filters, get air filters. Don't wait for official confirmation to take care of your house stuff. And I got a Twitter the next day, a warning said, this is unverified. And someone was like, Ian, you got a warning. I was like, I'm fine with it. I know I didn't verify this. It's just take care of yourself. But then the next day they removed the warning. So I don't know.
That's interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, it was really
it was a big thing where the New York Times claimed the far-right conspiracy theorists were saying the water table was being threatened. And I'm like, the governor of Ohio said that. He said a chemical plume is flowing downriver towards West Virginia. Are we supposed to assume that you can drink those chemicals? Is that why it's safe? No, the New York Times.
It's all about the power of the first impression, right? It's they put out these narratives hoping that, okay, the people that read the New York Times or the people that read the Washington Post, they see that at the beginning and they never look at it again. And anytime they see a story about it after that, they go, oh, that's just crazy right-wing conspiracy theorists. Yep. And so it's the power of that first impression that they're trying to marshal there. It's really criminal.
I've got the notice back on. I think the notice is on the thing I retweeted. It's not on my tweet. So it says the map is a high river basin, does not accurately represent areas of potentially contaminated drinking water. Multiple agencies and locales are actively testing groundwater and river-based drinking water and have found no contamination. Yet we've seen J.D. Vance's video of contamination.
And a grocery store is pulling water bottles off the shelves. Gee, I wonder why.
I think this notice can come down Twitter, whoever's put that up.
We're going to segue to a news story, a story from the New York Post. It's titled, Death of Shot Clinton Aide with Epstein Ties Found Tied to Tree Ruled Suicide Despite No Gun at Scene. And I want to say to all of you who are watching this show and are fans, I wanted to open tonight's show with this story, but the big news is obviously Trump coming down. That matters a lot more to people because it's directly impacting the lives of people who are facing this toxic spill. So I can respect that. And as much as the Clinton aide being tied by the neck to a tree and found shot to death with no gun, being ruled a suicide, well, this is not immediately going to impact your life, but it is very, very interesting. So let me just stress that again. An individual who worked at the Clintons in the 90s was found tied to a tree, shot in the chest, no gun, and they went, looks like a suicide to me. So I guess he held the gun to his chest, and when he pulled the trigger, the recoil blasted it off into the air where it landed on a small log in the river and then floated downstream and then eventually over a waterfall where it's just gone.
Maybe he might have had balloons tied to his gun.
That's a good point.
Yeah, that could have been it.
That's a good one. He had several hundred balloons tied to the gun because obviously the gun would probably weigh several pounds.
Did the Warren Commission do this or something? It's like the phantom gun theory. You know what I mean? Like if you're tied to a tree and you've got gunshots, is it more than one gunshot or is it just one?
I think
or is it two?
Well, I think it just said that he was shot in the chest, right? That's what it was, Phil?
I don't know.
So even if you have a pistol and you're doing that kind
An
of, that's
extension
difficult.
cord tying his neck to a tree with a gunshot wound to the chest. That's what it says.
What? I wonder what kind of gunshot.
Right.
Oh, they
Could you imagine like if this was a suicide and he strapped balloons to his gun for okay, come on. Like clearly he did not do that. Clearly this is probably just not a suicide. Maybe there's a bunch of things you can say maybe too, right? Let's play this game. How could someone? So he goes up against a tree and he throws the extension cord around it and then catches it on the other side and then ties it and spins it around so that way he's tied by the neck. Then he takes, we don't know what kind of gun, holds it to his chest, and when he pulls the trigger, at this point, several things may have occurred. The gun recoil launched into the air, where I mentioned it lands on a log and then floats away downstream never to be seen again. Or maybe a bear came. And like Cocaine Bear, saw the gun and thought to himself, with this, I will rule the forest. Picks the gun up and then walks away. In reality, maybe someone found the gun and was like, hey, that's worth money, and then just took it and ran. But let's just play Occam's razor. In the absence of evidence, the simple solution tends to be the correct one. Someone shot him. That's it.
And took the gun away.
And
right?
shot him and then walked away with it.
I can't believe that that's even a headline. I can't believe that actually people are expected to believe that. I mean, I suppose after the Epstein stuff, they figure just whatever.
I would like to hear the numbers of the number of people that commit suicide by shooting themselves in the chest. You know what I'm saying? Because I don't think that from what I've read about this situation, about people who do that, they want it over quickly, right? If you shoot yourself in the chest, unless you get yourself right in the heart, it's still a slow process, right? And so I think that should be a question that they ask as well. It's like, and not to mention just the sheer mechanics. If it was a rifle that it was done with, it was
the cop said they found 12 gauge buckshot in his car and a gun case with no gun. So that, did he have a shotgun?
That is incredibly difficult to do. A shotgun is a long rifle weapon.
18-inch barrel. If
That's
it's not
why-
SPS.
That's why the typical story is you use your foot.
Yeah.
They aim with their feet or whatever. I don't want to give away too much. Please,
Right.
nobody hurt yourself at home or anything like that. But I'm sorry. The recoil launched it into the air where it attached to a bird, like a bird catches it and flies away with it. He tied balloons to it. I mean, that's the only logical explanation if these cops are to be right. Or how about this? This guy is involved in something and somebody killed him. I mean, for all we know, look, let's be real. For all we know, he was banging some dude's wife, right? Could be that simple. We don't need to go back 30 years and be like he worked with the Clintons. He did. And maybe he banged some dude's wife and someone got revenge on him. Maybe it was a sheriff's wife.
But the sad part about this is that this is going to put an end to any real questioning about this. You may have people like us talking about it, but as in terms of official investigation, this is done because nobody else has jurisdiction.
Anything about the Clintons is done before it gets started.
It's true.
What's the Epstein ties? Did you guys read
He
into-
signed Epstein into the White House apparently like a dozen times, something like that.
See, I don't think that someone who's going to commit suicide would tie their neck around a tree first. That is very weird.
Or tie balloons to the gun. I mean, unless he was just like, I hate this world and I'm going to confuse the hell out of everybody.
I looked up New York Post, Clinton aids suicide, and it gave me other people's names as well.
Mark Rich?
Vince Foster.
Yeah. No, was it
Mark Middleton?
Mark Middleton, that's who it was, not Mark Rich, but yeah. Vince Foster. Yeah,
Vince Foster.
Twice in the back of the head or something like that. It was...
There was who was the journalist who was investigating the CIA or whatever, like the crack stuff, and then he got shot twice in the head and they ruled it a suicide. You want to look that one up?
Yeah.
What was that guy's name? Like, there's just so many of these stories. And then I was mentioning, I've been watching Yellowstone. And so this isn't really a spoiler because this is like first season, first episode stuff. But they kill a lot of people in that show. And they just kick them off a mountain. And it's like, ain't nobody going to find these people. You know what
This
I
is
mean?
Gary Webb. Is that the
Gary
guy?
Webb,
Two
yeah,
gunshots to the head, ruled a suicide by the Sacramento County Coroner's Office.
And that's it for that investigation.
Okay.
You know what I mean? That's done.
It could be like in South Park. There was that episode where the guy was trying to kill himself and then shoots himself. He's like, oh no, I'm still alive. And then he keeps trying or whatever. Like, okay, whatever. But I got Occam's razor this one and just be like, typically when someone's shot twice in the head, it's not a suicide. So why would they be like, nah, suicide's whatever.
Geez, Gary Webb wrote, what is this, the Dark Alliance series, examined the origins of the crack cocaine trade in Los Angeles and anti-communist Contra rebels in Nicaragua.
Yeah, we don't want people finding out about that.
The drug trade fueling.
Who knows what story
CIA,
the
economy.
the CIA selling crack and cocaine in the United States.
Do you think
Yep.
what percentage of our economy you think is like drugs? Is that taken in pharma? Would that take in pharma?
I mean, I think big pharma accounts for like probably 10%, some ridiculous number. I think the healthcare industry itself is 20%, isn't
huge.
it?
Huge.
But that's not just
growing.
drugs.
Yeah, those are licit drugs, not illicit.
No,
drugs.
it's not all drugs.
Right.
The 20% of the economy is medical, meaning like when you go to a doctor to get your legs set, or get ibuprofen for your bad headaches or something.
And all
Does
the-
that
all
include
the-
mental health?
Yes.
Yeah, and all the prices for that are all inflated because the government being involved in it and stuff. Anyway, there's no market, in the U.S. But
Yeah. Well,
You think like this drug trade from Central America is like a portion of the economy that is like black budget economy we just don't know about? So
of
they don't want
course,
to get exposed.
Of course, I think it is. I mean, there's always dark money, and it comes from all sources. But when you get into situations like this, just like Tim was saying, it could not be Clinton related.
Look. This guy worked with the Clintons 30 some odd years ago.
Right.
They're bringing up he was a Clinton aide because of the conspiracy theory. And that's what I've said about the conspiracy theory. And the Clintons are high-profile people who've worked in multiple agencies and in government. Of course, they're going to have connections to a lot of people. Now, the question is, take someone of comparable public stature and then calculate how many deaths and suicides exist around them in their periphery, and then do that several times. Is it different? I think what happens is, yeah, the Clintons are shady people, but it's just like, I've seen stories where it's like a security guard who worked for a financial firm the Clinton once used was found dead. And I'm like, okay, well, hold on there, buddy. We're getting a bit 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon on this one. Did they work with them or with their organizations? If there's a lot of that, that's weird. But they're just bringing up a guy who died recently and being like, he worked for the Clintons 30 years ago. And it's like, you're telling me that he still works for the Clintons or something?
Well, and this is just compounded by the whole Epstein connection. I mean, they're still trying
Right.
to claim that he, killed himself. Right. I mean, and all the tapes just weren't working. All the videos weren't working.
This should say former Clinton aide.
Minsk says, Tim, don't forget to give the disclaimer. Talk to a doctor and find out if associating with the Clintons is right for you. I think the doctor would say, no.
No, don't do that.
Didn't he die in Arkansas too? Is that what it was? That's what I think was really. Yeah, he Perryville, Arkansas, May 2nd, 2022. Almost 1 year after his death, a police report obtained by the outlet revealed that the Little Rock businessman was discovered with a gunshot wound to the chest and extension cord tying his neck to a tree. The extension cord was tied to a tree limb above him. So did he like throw it over and then like slip knot it, pull it, tie it around his neck, and then lean back and then shoot himself?
Could this be autoerotic asphyxiation gone wrong? I
shot
mean,
himself.
I mean, it just seems so very strange.
Maybe the real story is that like it was autoerotic asphyxiation, but then like a loved one was like, I can't let it be known that he died this way, so they shoot him when he was already dead.
That's an explanation.
Well, there was some celebrity who died from that, and they wouldn't admit it. They were like, "Oh, it was heroin."
Singer in XS.
Was it?
Was it really?
I think it was the singer in XS.
He was
believe I
he was
heard that
choking
story.
himself while
Choking
cranking
himself.
it. This is the family-friendly show, so
Oh,
Was
yeah.
it Cornell? Was Cornell doing that too?
I don't think so. No.
Okay, good.
yeah, I think that was heroin. I think
Chris.
Yeah, I
Really?
think that was heroin,
He
wasn't it?
died on an airplane?
I
thought he
it was
in
a
hotel room.
I heard it was a suicide. I didn't never heard about cause of death though. So
Like
It's-
fentanyl overdose or something?
No, I don't know. I've also heard other stories about what that might have been, so I'm gonna not get into
Of Cornell.
Yeah, well, not just that, but like a lot of other people too. It's just
Oh, it's horrific.
getting
those
dark
sleeping
here,
dogs.
guys.
Yeah, I know exactly. Dark and not so family
Yeah,
friendly.
Do you
yeah.
think that having the word Clinton in the headline of this is sensationalist?
Yes,
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Do you think
but
sensationalist journalism is destroying the universe?
yes.
no, destroying the universe.
Well, I think it's destroying our political system. I think that everything is about getting clicks, and you have this giant push for how many clicks, and this is right and left. That's what gets so frustrating. I live in a red state, okay, and politicians or just journalists will automatically put out the most sensational headline that they can, and the body of the story has nothing to do with what the headline has to do. And this is in red states, and it gets very frustrating for people who, like myself, are just trying to find the truth about what's actually happening in your community, because all this stuff becomes smoke and mirrors. And I think that the Republicans taking kind of the woke cue from things from 2019, 2020, when everything just got out of hand, have said, well, we're just going to jump on the bandwagon. Conservative media sometimes does that. And I think it's not doing us any favors. It's not doing us any favors to actually find out the truth of what's going on.
Yeah, it's kind of like if a weapon was given to your opponent, the opposing army, but what the weapon does is hurt everyone a little bit.
Right.
And they use it, and you're like, well, that thing is destroying us. We need it too. So then you start using it, and everyone's getting hurt. I mean, it's everyone. Your people too.
Right.
That's what it feels like.
It's self-harm over time, because then people stop trusting you. And the more the politicians dig into that, you get in the local communities, and in places like Oklahoma, you just lose trust for the people that you've elected, and these people. Right? These are your local elected officials, but they're participating as much as anybody on the national level, sometimes more.
The disassociation and not trusting and not knowing your local politicians, I think, is something that people in cities are familiar with and used to, whereas people in small towns, it's easier to access your local politicians if there's only 5,000, 10,000 people in your town, as opposed to if you're, in New York City or in Cleveland or whatever. Like people we were talking about East Palestine, there's only 5,000 of them. They can access the politicians and let them know that they're upset really easily.
They can, but that's a double-edged sword, because sometimes you get local politicians who are friends with everybody.
Sure.
And they will just say what everything kind of on the blanket of that trust, on the foundation of that trust. And oftentimes you'll see, if you really investigate it, that what they're saying is not necessarily, and I'm not talking about anybody specifically, I'm just saying I've seen this over and over again, where they use this hometown spirit. Okay, if you're running in this district, you got 10,000 people in your district, all their names, all the families, and you go out and you say, well, this is what this bill does, and you actually read the bill, and it does the complete opposite. That gets weaponized too. And so I would just encourage anybody, from my experience, read your bills, your local bills, because they're the ones that the local laws that are passed on your behalf from your local politicians, because those are the ones that directly affect you.
Yeah.
Make sure they're doing what it is they say they're doing.
I've been thinking about sensationalizing the titles of our show, like this show, because what if the name of the show is just number 713? And would we get as many views?
Well, then you'd be Lex Friedman.
We might not. We might get more. Yeah, exactly. Because Lex's show is off the chains popular. Rogan, he doesn't put he just puts the name of the person in the video and a number. Huge views. Like, because the person, right. You trust them, and you it's more about the people than about what.
Right. But you come to Timcast to find out, because I think this show has done a great job. I started watching around 2020, and you're a left-leaning person. I was more right-leaning, right? And I appreciated the fact that I could see what you were talking about, and then I could see your mind change, on different things. That it opened up. You were opening up people's eyes while you were opening up people's eyes about things, and I think that that's the benefit of having that kind of, if you want to call it sensationalism, on a show like this. It's because you hit people from all sides here. You know what I mean?
This is a topical cultural commentary and political commentary and news commentary.
Right.
If we were just a show about talking to each other and having a hangout, the titles would be very different. So that's why Lex Friedman's show is literally him talking to a guy. Joe Rogan is him talking to a person, or I shouldn't say guy, but people. So it's just the name of the person, and that's what you go for. So the new show that we're doing, Fridays, Culture War with Tim Pool, youtube.com/Timcast, is probably just going to be titled Culture War #1, Ollie London, Culture War #2, guest to come. Because those are just conversations and hangouts.
I guess, do you stress about being too sensationalist when you make internet video titles?
A little bit. We've talked about it before. I mean, I've got my limit. Clearly, the most successful channels on YouTube have no qualms whatsoever about saying the craziest garbled nonsense.
You know what? One thing Mr. Beast does really well is his titles will be outlandishly awesome, but then in the first 10 seconds, he'll back up the title. He'll let you know you are about to see what the title says. It's this. Get ready. So your expectations are met right away. Apparently, that's a huge part of.
As with many things, there are people who naturally are sensational and they have no idea what they're doing and why it works, but they get a lot of traffic. Then there are people who consciously try to figure out how to create better titles and headlines to attract more people, and they get called scummy for being manipulative. It's like, well, should we just leave it to those who are accidentally manipulating people, or should people make headlines that are attractive? I have a limit, clearly. But strangely, we've had instances where it's like the news story is, Donald Trump delivers Big Macs. Like, I'll make the title just that, and someone will be like, clickbait. And I'll be like, clickbait.
Literally what he did.
That's what he
Clickbait
did.
refers to omitting information from a title in order to get people to click it so that they can figure out what's going on. Rage bait is a reference to intentionally overhyping something to shock people, make them angry, so they click it and then watch. And then, of course, clickbait could also refer to if Joe Biden trips going up the stairs, titling the video, Joe Biden has horrific fall, nearly dies, and then it's a video of him stumbling and going. Like that's most of the internet, though. Let's jump to this story. Here's one. This headline is not sensationalized. From the Post-Millennial, Arizona rancher charged with murder of Mexican man was, quote, hunting migrants with AK-47, prosecutors. Prosecutors allege that Kelly hunted the group of men with his gun and made numerous alterations to his story when he later spoke to law enforcement. So you may have heard this story. This guy, George Allen Kelly, 73, is being charged with murder because a guy who was on his property was shot. They say he did it. It was an illegal immigrant with numerous felony crossings, I guess. And the issue now apparently is they're saying he hunted these migrants down to kill them. Yeah. What I find strange is that Arizona, I'm pretty sure, is a defensive property state, meaning you can kill someone to defend your property. Like if someone is about to cross onto your property, my understanding is that you have a right to use lethal force if they don't stop. So what's strange about this case is that here's a guy who's on his own property. Clearly someone's breaking the law. They end up shot and dead. But this guy gets arrested. I'm wondering, how does that make sense?
Well, he was trespassing, right? I mean, that's
in the country and the land.
Right. Well, and that's what Vivek Ramaswamy just announced for president, and he talks about the difference between immigration and illegal immigration, or people coming across the border illegally. And I think that's the crux of the matter here. Is this guy, he's crossed the border illegally, and then he's crossed into somebody's property illegally, right? And this guy's defending his property. He has a right to do that, as opposed to somebody who goes through INS and goes through the process to get the green card and does all of that. And I think that underscores what we were just talking about the need to be precise in our language, right? And that's why I kind of like Vivek and him coming out and running for president now, but it is to be precise in our language and understand what is happening here is why you see so much confusion about situations like this. You know, and the media just seems to play into that.
This guy says that he just fired warning shots and there's no evidence that his bullets hit the guy, which to me sounds like he might be telling a lie, that maybe he did go out there to shoot the trespassers, but now he's afraid that if he says it out loud, he'll go to jail for sure. So he changed his story. But when you change your story, then you look like a liar. That's kind of what I'm looking at the path of this situation at the moment.
I think the Biden administration and Democrats want more illegal immigration for a variety of reasons. One, so they can increase the population in their states. They're bringing these people in, putting them on planes and flying them to swing states and blue states. And they also want the short-term economic demand. Bringing in a whole bunch of people and putting them in cities will create temporary short-term demand, followed by stagnation and economic crisis. But that short-term gain looks good for them on paper. They can use it to get reelected. And the long-term gain is bringing in a bunch of people who will increase the census numbers, giving them more electoral college votes and congressional seats. So when a guy who lives there says, hey, get off my property, they're coming right for me, they go, this guy needs to be made, we need to make an example of him so that people don't screw with our agenda. You take a look, was it for McAllen, Texas? Is that where it's at? Where under the bridge, they had all those people? The Biden administration clearly is happy with what's going on. People talk about the southern border and Biden letting us down or failing or whatever, and it's like, no, he's doing exactly what he intended to do the whole time.
This is 100% by design. This is the intent of the Democrats. They have had full authority to do something for 2 years. They have done nothing. They did nothing during the Obama administration. This has been the Democrats' plan for the better part of the past 20 years to have cheap labor be imported into the country. It's completely clear. I can't take anyone that argues against that seriously.
It's been going on for 250 years, dude. The southern states imported cheap labor through the African slave trade and then wanted to use those numbers to pad their stats.
Bro.
Oh, yeah, they did.
Bro.
Okay,
Brother.
All right.
It's different stuff.
They had
it is.
They wanted to
true.
use those numbers to inflate their stats.
You can say truthfully that bringing slaves in was quote unquote cheap labor, but migrants coming here is not the same as slavery.
Yeah,
migrants are coming here of their own volition. Like they're walking,
it's less
like they
bad
want
now,
to
yeah.
do
Yeah,
it. Like there weren't a lot of people that were in Africa that were like, I'm going to go to America and be a slave.
It wasn't-
Like, they weren't running out and jumping on the
Right.
slave ship.
Right.
It's definitely worse. The slave
As
trade
soon
was
as
worse.
Biden got elected, or it looked like he was going to be elected and become president, you had a mass migration from Central America all
yeah.
the way up through because they knew that they were going to be allowed to come through. And before that, you had
shirts-
remain in Mexico.
They had shirts that said, "Please let us in, Biden," or whatever.
Yes.
Right.
Remember that one?
Yeah, no, they asked for it. And, Kamala Harris comes out and says, well, don't come. Right. And of course, they're going to listen. They can even hear what she's saying. Right. I mean, they're not sitting there, on their phones going, oh, well, Kamala said not to go. Let's go back.
Kamala Harris helped make one of the best memes of that year.
Yeah.
too.
Look at these.
The reason
there were a
brought
bunch
up
of these.
The reason I brought up the African slave trades because the numbers padding that they're doing with the census, like what the I erroneously said that they said all black people were worth 3/5 of a person in the eyes of God 2 nights ago. That's not what it was about.
It was
It was about the North trying to say, like, look, we're not going to let you pad your stats for the states with
Right.
your slaves. We'll say they're worth 3/5 of a person each legally, just so
Well,
we can
It was an
even
effort
out
to weaken slavery.
And
is
so
what it
now
was.
we've
The
got
North said they're not voting people because they're slaves. The South said yes, they are, and then they agreed on 3/5.
Right. They were property. The South wanted to call them property, whatever. But now we've got people that are padding stats one for one. They're not legal citizens. So what do we need? Another 3/5 clause? Do we need to say,
No, how about
no.
don't break the law? And
Right.
How
go
about
home.
just enforce the existing laws?
That right
well,
there.
the problem is
That's it.
sanctuary states because existing law
illegal.
is
They're
different.
breaking the law.
It is illegal.
The federal government has, whether or not you agree with like open borders or not, currently the federal government is the organization charged with protecting the borders and enforcing border law, and they are completely and totally neglecting to do that.
Well, and I think you're seeing good signs come out of places like Texas, where you have Governor Abbott, saying, if you're not going to do it, we're going to do it, and we're going to send the National Guard or send, the Texas Marshals down there to help enforce. But when you don't have a barrier, right? I mean, when you don't have something to keep them out in places because you can't put eyes on every inch of the border all the time, it's impossible. So the federal government is leaving this to the states, knowing that they probably can't handle it economically, and it absolutely is a plan, and
Yeah.
it's been working for a long, long time.
Sanctuary states basically means they're not part of the union. When California says we will not abide by union law, it's like, well, then why are you in any way tied to this union if you're not agreeing?
Well,
with the
what
law?
Interposition.
Let me just play devil's advocate. What about the marijuana laws? Because you have 40 states now that have said that marijuana is legal, but the federal government says it's
Agreed.
not. I mean, it's interesting.
The federal government's got deep problems.
Yeah, I agree.
That's the idea of interposition, where a state's supposed to step in and say, we supersede your federal law.
Yeah.
Which is technically the way the country works. So in that instance, California can say, yeah, even if you're acting xenophobic, we're going to let whoever we want
Then
in.
Texas should have the right to deport. And the problem is, what we're hearing from border states is that they have no authority in deporting people.
Texas is deporting to New York and deporting to
Yeah,
Florida.
but all that's,
Florida
all that's
is,
doing
yeah.
is putting illegal immigrants in deeper into the country
Yeah.
and embedding them here.
Yeah.
They're helping Joe Biden and Democrats and convincing their voters they're helping their voters. So you get all these Republicans going like, yay, haha, it's so funny they're doing this. Meanwhile, Biden's like, this is awesome.
Yeah.
This is fantastic for us. We're gonna inflate our numbers in these jurisdictions, and New York is going to get more congressional votes. It's going to get more electoral college votes. Thank you, Texas. Thank you, Florida.
I do think that there is a little bit of risk in classifying all people that are migrants as automatically a Democrat voter, especially considering the push with LGBT issues, gender ideology. That's not going to fly with the Catholics coming up from South America.
No.
And also there's also a lot of people from a lot of different parts of the world now are coming through the U.S. border. I've heard about people from Syria and from Turkey already getting there because of the earthquake. So it's as long as that border is open, there's going to be people from all over the world going to, coming to South America and then making the trek up through Mexico. The remain in Mexico policy, or remain in whatever the safest country that you can get to, that's the correct policy. If you want to apply for asylum, that's it. That's the one to do. I think that we should have I think we should have a much easier system for getting people to immigrate to the U.S. I think that, I like the idea of open borders. I do think that there probably has to be some kind of immigration control, but overall, I think free people should be able to move wherever they want. But the system that we have now is not working at all.
When I'm thinking about the census, I think when you fill out the census, you don't have to put if you're a citizen. Is that right? Is that the way they changed it now? There's no is there a census or is there a citizen block and you can either say yes,
I remember
no,
there being
or
a
I
fight
don't have
over
to fill
that
it out?
in some places. but
Well,
I'm not
if
sure.
you don't put that you're a citizen, then your census count should be worth 3/5 of a person.
Or nothing. And Donald Trump tried getting that on the census, and they sued, and the Supreme Court said you can't do that.
They wanted to prevent him from forcing people to acknowledge that they weren't citizens. I'm just saying you don't have to acknowledge if you are or you're not, but if you don't acknowledge that you are, then your census should
He
count
wanted
for
to
less.
put the question on the census, and they blocked him, saying you can't.
Right, that's what it was.
I understand
Which is
that,
insane.
because if people had to say no, then they'd just be a target for ICE.
Well, they wouldn't have filled it out.
So you're saying people who are here illegally breaking our laws should just be allowed to keep breaking our laws?
I don't personally feel like that, but I think
It's a ridiculous argument that it's like, well, if someone is committing serious felonies, we shouldn't force them to tell us. Yes, you should. The cops should find them and arrest them, and that's it.
Well, and if you aren't a citizen of the United States, you aren't necessarily protected by the Constitution.
You are.
Of the
You
United States.
absolutely are protected by the Constitution.
If you're not a citizen?
Yep. Constitution applies to anybody in this country. Doesn't matter if you're a citizen or not.
Yeah.
And I'm fine with that. The issue, however, is if you are not a citizen of this country and you are here illegally, or your visa. Yes,
Well, but then
because-
you have a right to self-incriminate. You could plead the fifth, so to speak, right? Because
Right. So you get the census with the question on it, and you don't fill it out.
No.
But the idea that you can't put the question on the census is insane.
Yeah.
And the argument from the left was, well, then people who are not citizens won't fill it out and we'll get inaccurate readings. And it's like, so the people who are here illegally, we won't give federal funding to the people who aren't here illegally. I'm fine with that. If you're not here legally, you should not be receiving benefits in any way. California should not get a congressional seat because of illegal immigrants they let in and don't enforce the laws against.
Yep.
If the federal government, so this is the big problem. This is why I feel like the country is on the verge of blowing up, collapsing, whatever you want to call it. Texas has to abide by the votes of California when it comes to the federal government. But California is breaking the federal rules to strengthen itself. So imagine you got a roommate and your roommate is taking your stuff and selling it and then using that money to pay your rent or whatever. And you're like, yo, you can't do this. You're stealing my stuff, basically. Well, I pay more rent than you, so I get more say. California is breaking the rules, bringing people in, then arguing they should get more say than everybody else. Why would Texas or Florida want to be a part of a union that allows that?
That's it. I know that the national divorce question is huge right now. The thing that gives me pause about this, and I understand your question because it seems like it makes it impossible to work with each other. But I just want to remind everybody of what the woke mantra was in 2020. Right? It's disrupt and dismantle. Right? That was the whole thing. And it seems to me that the left has done a lot of disrupting, and they're leaving it to the right to dismantle a little bit. Where it's like, okay, we've disrupted all this stuff. Aren't you super mad at California? Well, then we need a national divorce. Because what I keep reminding people of is that, first of all, the more you talk about divorce, the more likely it is to happen. That's if you've ever been in marriage counseling or anything like that. But the other part of it is that the only thing that's keeping the global oligarchy from taking over completely, I believe, is the Constitution of the United States. And if you have a dissolution, if you have a divorce, the Constitution is gone. I mean, it is in effect gone. And so then we have a serious problem because then we've actually brought to the left what the left wanted in the first place because they disrupted and we dismantled. So I understand the sentiment and I know it's difficult, but we've been through worse times, right? But
The Constitution
it's hard.
is basically gone as it is because red states don't do anything. Republicans don't do anything. There has been a growing contingent of people, say the MAGA movement or whatever, who have been resisting. The establishment is freaking out, and they've been freaking out. But you take a look at Mitch McConnell, who, I love this, he was asked about Nord Stream. Who could have done it? And he goes, well, it certainly wasn't us, or something like that. It's like, oh yeah, okay, Russia blew up their own pipeline. No sane, rational person who pays attention to politics thinks that. But this is what they do. This is what they think of you and how they present quote unquote facts. So what does this mean for us if we have a constitution or otherwise? Are they infringing on our rights to free speech? Yes, every single day. Are they infringing on our right to keep and bear arms? Yes, incessantly. They even infringed on the Third Amendment with the COVID lockdowns by mandating that people who are in the U.S. Armed Forces could not be evicted. That violates the Third. Don't even get me started on the Fourth Amendment. Come on. Unwarranted search and seizure, the mass spying programs, Fifth Amendment. Dude, there are people who are locked up all the time. January 6th is a great example. The list goes on and on and on.
But do you think that the left is the only ones doing that? I mean,
that's why I'm saying it doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter.
So the idea now is sit back and let California cheat and break the law and abuse people and let Democrats do it nationwide and riot and burn down buildings, or say no and get a national divorce.
I think that I think that a national divorce is a little too extreme. And I think that I made an argument on Twitter that at this point, I think convention of states is the only legal means to have a divorce. It says to actually dissolve with that, because the thing you were talking last night about the Civil War. The thing about the Civil War is they didn't have the states to call a convention, so that it was technically illegal, right? For the states to secede because they couldn't actually make the amendment. If you call a Article 5 convention, you can actually amend the Constitution. It's not going to be easy, but it's a whole lot easier than living without electricity because we had a civil war and the infrastructure destroyed.
Calling a convention does not get you the requisite votes for changing the Constitution. It simply brings people to a room who then argue again.
And so you can make amendments to the Constitution,
which then have to be voted on and ratified
by the states, but independent of DC.
Yes, and then we don't have enough states to even call a convention. And if we did, I would say half of the red states are going to go, slow down there, Democrats, and then do nothing.
You're not wrong, but
so what we have right now is we are in an abusive relationship where we're being pummeled and beaten in the face, and people are going, but if you leave him, you'll be homeless. And I'm like, I'd rather sleep under a bridge.
The point is, you have to exhaust the legal means that are afforded to the population for anything to be legitimate. Sure. You have to go through all legal means first.
National divorce is the statement asking for a legal.
It is, but
again,
you are enabling what I believe is behind the dissolution of America or the dissolution of us as a people. You're giving them exactly what they want because
I don't care what they want.
Yeah,
that's not an argument.
I think it is an argument because if you're playing into what the plan is, because it'll be worse after you don't have the protection of the Constitution, albeit it may be weakened at this point.
I disagree. States have their own constitutions. It's like saying my significant other is mercilessly beating me, demanding I leave the house. But if I do leave, I'll be giving them exactly what they want. It's like, or you leave and then you stop getting beaten and then you be responsible for yourself. So I'm not saying a national divorce is the guaranteed absolute way to solve these problems. I'm just saying the argument that we should sit here, take the abuse, and then cross our fingers is also not an answer.
Well, but you also have you can fight back through the legal means to stop these things, and you have more tools to be able to do that within the system that we have, within the constitutional system that we have.
Lawsuits have just barely begun.
Right, exactly.
Lawsuits have just barely begun,
this is the naivety. Okay, California will not stop. These cult members are hell-bent on imposing everything about their psychosis on the rest of the country. And the other side, which is independent, conservative, post-liberal, or whatever, are saying, please leave me alone. But please leave me alone doesn't stop abusers from trying to destroy you and harm your children. And so we're at a point now where we've got Marjorie Taylor Greene and other people like Michael Malice and Luke Rudkowski, among many others, saying maybe a peaceful divorce, a national divorce. And now you have many conservatives coming out saying, no, that's a bad idea because then we lose this, we lose that, we lose this. And I'm like, actually, I think the cities will collapse in 2 seconds without the rural areas that prop them up. These people seem to think that national divorce means state borders. No. That's not what it means at all. It likely would mean, if you look at the secession movement in Oregon, in Eastern Oregon, it would strip the rural farmland from the cities that are oppressing them. And the people in Eastern Oregon are trying to secede first and foremost just from Portland, basically, so that they can join Idaho and be working with a community that more agrees with them. That's step one. That's not even national divorce. And Portland says, F you no, because the people who live in Eastern Portland are poorer, but produce the food and the resources the city needs to survive. You cut that off, the city ceased to exist in 2 seconds. So if there was a national divorce, I'd imagine Los Angeles, New York, Portland, Chicago, etc., would crumble and people would panic and it would be sheer chaos as they went to farms and desperately begged you for food. Now, California as a state produces a ton of food, but the parts that produce the food are all conservative. So what would happen if there was a national divorce? Would the people in California be like, guess we're stuck with California? Or would they be like, the borders are dissolving, we're with them?
But you also have to remember that the people producing the food make their money and their living by selling the food to the cities. So if they're not selling the food to the cities, to the people who eat it, then they're not making money either. So it's within their, it's in their best interest to keep that lane open. I know it's leverage. I get it, but it's also it's leverage on both ends.
Why do
because there's supply and demand.
Why is it that the cities have leverage over the people, the workers? Why is it that the guy who works at BuzzFeed and writes articles about Brad Pitt's junk is getting 4 times the income of a dude who works the field picking crops? How does that make sense? We as a society value a dude who goes on the internet and says Donald Trump is Hitler more than a guy who grows the food we need to eat. That makes no sense. And if there was some kind of, we don't got to call it a national divorce, some kind of restructuring and an assertion of the leverage and the authority of those who actually make this country work, then you would see cities collapse overnight or desperately.
And that's where language is really important here, because I think that you can do that within the system that we have.
Yeah.
Is that if red states and their governors and their legislatures were to actually put their foot down, right? And trust me, I live in the reddest state in America, and I get very frustrated with exactly what it is that you're describing here, where it's just like, well, let's do the 2030 plan and, make a bunch of money off of whatever, when they should be standing up to these other states and, filing a lawsuit like Texas did against Pennsylvania with the mail-in voting. Yep. And hopefully we could have a Supreme Court that would actually take up a case like that, because it was really important.
You're playing a game of Monopoly with people who are cheating, and they keep going, well, I'll just keep trying and eventually I'll win. And the people who are cheating, they definitively believe they are justified in doing what they do because they're morally right. So what we need is, okay, before national divorce, we need a realignment of the leverage. The one simple thing is that the producers in this country, of which there are growing increasingly less, to just outright say no to those cities. Sorry, we no longer drive our trucks and deliver to you because you're destroying this country. See, the problem is most people, and the reason we're in this mess is because most people will tell you, I agree with you, but I will do nothing to bring risk to myself. Matt Strickland comes on this show and talks about how his restaurant was being targeted by ABC, by the government. They seized all his booze, they shut him down, and he refused to back down, and he won. Then he gets phone calls from people saying, what you did was amazing, we support you. What can we do to help? And he said, do the same thing, brother. And they go, oh, no, I would never do that. I will only stand back and hide in the shadows as you assume all the risks for yourself, tell you to keep doing it while I watch you get steamrolled by the government, and then do nothing to support you because, well, life's not that bad.
Right. Well, and we see that kind of thing on the internet all the time. I mean, just I
live that.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And I have too, where it's
my Twitter account. People were terrified to touch me because of my Twitter. Still are terrified to touch me because of my Twitter account.
No, I know. I think I've experienced that, and we probably all have at a certain point where it's nobody will come to your aid, even if they know you're right, because they just don't want to be, mixed up in the drama. Right. Yes, they're cowards, and that's really disappointing.
We did this skating event in DC. And I was warned by some industry guys. They were like, hey man, you shouldn't go to DC and do this thing. People are really mad. It's going to be a lot of heat, and it's, we're worried. And then I'm like, dude, I live here. I live in the DC area. I go skate where I feel like skating. And you know what happened? Nothing. The locals skated, got a few fist bumps, gave out a bunch of skateboards. A crowd was there. We cheered. We all skated. We filmed. Nobody said anything negative. These people live in the state of fear over a boogeyman that doesn't exist.
Yes.
And they're scared to speak up because, you know what? Maybe the reason YouTube allows a show like this is that us talking about wokeness and the cult puts it in the minds of people to be afraid.
Right.
That when we say people are afraid because these things happen, that reinforces it. I don't know, man. It's frustrating that we get to the point where Marjorie Taylor Greene says national divorce, and there are people who are still just like, no, slow down there, Democrats. And I'm like, dude, if we're at the point where we know for a fact that California is bringing in non-citizens to fluff their numbers and give themselves more federal power, that is a very serious act of corruption that is destroying the union. And Texas knows it, and Oklahoma knows it, and Nebraska knows it. All of these red states know it, and they do nothing. They let California cheat and then just do nothing.
What are they supposed to do?
Well, I think the federal government, I'll put it this way. At this point, it seems like the federal government is unwilling to enforce these rules. The Texas v. Pennsylvania lawsuit was a good start, but they need to start cutting off trade, and it should be like sanctions. The idea that Texas allowed a man's child to be taken to California for sex change surgery or medication is insane. Why would Texas allow that to happen? Imagine if you lived in a state and a parent said that they were going to bring a child across state lines to kill them for medical assistance in death. And the state went, that's fine. It's like, so there's no law protecting life? Okay, we got a problem there. Texas or any other state that allows a person to cross its borders to commit crimes elsewhere, then we have no rule of law. I mean, imagine if you took a kid across state lines, the federal government agrees with what this woman is doing to this kid, and they won't do anything about it. And no one else will. Okay, you could say that we can't have a national divorce, but as far as I'm concerned, when you're at the point where Colorado says no limit abortions, and Oklahoma says no abortions at all, and California says sex change for kids, and Texas says no, but the federal government is siding with one side that's breaking the law, there is no government. There is no United States. There is no Constitution. It is simply people holding on to an image or a memory they once had, wishing that it was still true, but it's not.
But then the option is just force.
Right.
The option is loss of confidence. The option is, as a business, don't trade with California. Look at what the liberal states do. They bar their employees in the government from going to Atlanta or otherwise. They put restrictions on companies doing business with other countries. Other states, other counties. We'll recover it that way. But Republicans don't do the same. Mitch McConnell sits down and goes, well, slow down there, Democrats. And people keep voting for him, and they keep voting for McCarthy, and we get the same thing over and over
There's
again.
an economic reason for that, because you have like states like Oklahoma on the whole do not have the money and the income that California does, right? I mean, they don't have the business. They don't have Google. I mean, they're starting to get it now. Google's starting to inject itself into red states, which I'm just like, guys, hey, don't be careful what you wish for here, you know, but they don't have the large businesses, you know, in Montana that they do in California. And so they're in many ways dependent upon that 21st century income that they see the world going towards. And so they feel like it's a little bit, they've got them over the barrel.
California,
you know?
it's the fifth, if it was a country, it would be the fifth largest economy in the world.
Right.
Alone, just the state. It apparently pulled in $3.63 trillion in 2022 gross state product. The largest in the United States, the largest economy of any state in the United States. So it's kind of like asking a kid to stop eating the breast milk of its mother. Like,
no, it's like
California is our Western economy. Like it is the mouth of our entire port system, essentially.
Well,
so start with this: charge California 3x taxes for sending for their goods going into your state. Say, okay, California, if you want to sell your products in our state, then you got to pay a tariff. You got to pay a state, you know, import fee.
Yeah, and so then they just go, well, yeah, we'll just do more business with China.
Good.
You know what I mean? Like,
bye. Have a nice day.
You know,
this idea that the right is unwilling to boycott or unwilling to say no, they're unwilling to forego their luxuries, then lose. By all means, then lose. If you would prefer to have peaceful slavery, by all means, don't let me stand in your way. However, if you would like to assess the situation and realize that with freedom comes risk and responsibility, well, then the choice is yours. If you want to go out and so for us, for instance, we decided we want to get away from the cities and we come to West Virginia. And there are risks that come with leaving a city. We can't get internet in the new place where we're at. These are challenges. It's ridiculously expensive. Internet costs several $1,000s per month out here. It costs $90 in the city. But I would rather spend that money than live in these areas supporting what they're doing. So for a lot of people, they choose peaceful slavery over dangerous freedom. And you know what? That's part of freedom too. By all means, be that, live that life. That's not for me. I'd rather give the middle finger and say, I'm not going to support your machine. Now, don't get me wrong. There are varying degrees to which we have to coexist and be strategic. I'm not saying it is simply put that we all just stop watching Disney. My position on this has always been, I don't expect the average person to just boycott Disney outright and not watch anything from Disney ever again, because that's unreasonable to the average person. But we have to build the cultural infrastructure to shift them away from it and make things that make them say, I'd rather watch this instead. Mm-hmm. Yellowstone's a great show.
Yes.
Some people have called it woke, which makes no sense to me. The show is very anti-woke. Support shows like this, which has a bit of nuance in it and is, in my opinion, relatively anti-woke. It's got some good woke moments that I think are fine, but it's mostly like, there's a scene where there's an environmentalist and she's insulting the family, and a character says, I don't know a lot about this environmental stuff, but I'll tell you this, you don't change anyone's mind by insulting them and their family in their own home. And I'm like, here, I like that stuff.
Well, but that's kind of like what I was saying earlier, is that we are now just labeling people so much. If there's a woke moment in a show, the show is woke, right? If there's an unwoke moment in a show, the show is unwoke, right? And then that just bifurcates us into this point where it's like, okay, everybody says that we want to, have a parallel economy. I get that. I think that makes sense, where you have places to go, and that's the free market, right? But when we start pejorativizing or demonizing these shows, like because I love that show, right? I hate the woke parts of it, and I just point that out to people. I use that to say, look, hey, this is what's actually I believe is wrong about this, and I use that as a teaching moment, and then enjoy the rest of the show, right? And it seems that we're unwilling to do that because there is market influence that says, well, I'm going to create the unwoke version of the show. And then you see that in the clicks and the influencer that says, go watch this one, when we could all gather around the same show and enjoy it.
We are seeing some positive moves. West Virginia, for instance, Florida, getting rid of ESG. The state saying outright, we don't do business this way. We need more of this. We need more red states to outright ban companies that break the law. ESG is illegal.
So you're looking,
simply put.
You're looking for state legislatures and state governors to step up and say, okay, we're going to.
That's one element.
Okay. That's Vivek Ramaswamy's platform, man.
Yes, that is. It is Vivek's platform.
The other element is that we as individuals have to be conscious about the products we buy. How about this? Here's a start. When you go to the grocery store, if you see something, take a look at where it's packaged and produced. If it says California, put it back, don't touch it, don't buy it ever again. If you see something that's coming from a red state, there you go. There's the product you buy. Better yet, Google search the company. Are they doing ESG? Don't buy their garbage. Yep. Because I don't expect you to stop going to a grocery store. I don't expect you to stop buying whipped cream and ho-hos and ding-dongs. Just buy the cupcakes that are coming from people who agree with you. So download Public Square, the app that shows you businesses that agree with American values. That's phase one. Creating a parallel economy can prevent the need for some kind of national divorce if, as a culture, we shift back into the things we value.
But having a parallel economy, if you don't have a unifying spirit or a unifying message that connects you as a country, will actually, I think, spur a national divorce. It may lead to that. I say, I'm not saying that we shouldn't do it. I think if you want to, you spend your money where you want to spend your money. Right. And and people creating options of that within the market, absolutely do that. But
let's make a movie and music studio in West Virginia, and we'll start producing film. I mean, look, the Daily Wire started making movies, and they need to invest as much as they can in that space. It's very, very hard.
It is very hard. It's partly because of the ESG of it all. Because you can't get good loan rates if you don't have a good ESG score.
But
right?
Just do
that's currently in. Like that's at the active situation now.
It is.
Really?
Yeah, it is the active, because if you don't agree with these, they give you loan rates based upon your ESG score. And this is what Ramaswamy is talking about a lot. It's that, and where he was the first one to come out. I'm really glad that he's in the race. We talked about Trump, and I read Vivek's book, Woke Inc. Go out and read that book, because it really pieces it all together. But he pieces all of this together and shows you exactly how these companies have injected themselves into government, right? And this whole mechanism is using to break down the American spirit.
Yeah,
it's to stop us from seeing what we do have in common by constantly throwing in front of our face the politics of division. And so I'm glad he's running. I think Trump did a great thing here, but I know we're kind of off that topic.
No, I think the left when people say left, right, red, blue, that is the division, that is the path to destruction. Like that's Mao Zedong. He was like, let's talk about the rightists. He created a group of society that was on the right. And that was the best way to divide people. So I don't like thinking of terms of like, you've got to be in a camp, because as soon as you think that way, you're building a reality that way.
But everything in our market forces right now is pushing us towards that direction. That's what I noticed.
People are choosing.
I don't think it's
direction.
a direction, though. That's the thing. It's like a system that's calculating and wants a certain output.
I want to throw an idea out. Do you guys really think that it is left versus right, or do you feel like the left is really consolidated and it's the left versus everyone that doesn't line up with the left?
Yes.
It's like a
It's the cult
technocratic
versus
system.
everyone else.
It's a uniparty situation, because you have a lot of Republicans out there that pretend to be Republicans when it's convenient for them, and everything they're doing under the radar is right aligned with what the left wants. Whether you're talking about the 2030 environmental plan that Biden has and the Democrats have had for a long time, you see red state Republicans buying into this on a regular basis, while they go out and say, well, we banned abortion, so that's good, but we're leading the state down the same situation that made California today, and that's really frustrating in a red state. So
I don't think of them as like red. I mean, I understand the idea of being able to talk about things in binary, like you're there,
Right,
I'm
right.
here. Okay, fine, but we are one in the eyes of God. All right. All right. But I think that sometimes I wonder if my own peer group has been brainwashed in the last 7 years to think in terms of division, and that just acknowledging the division is the division.
I disagree. I don't care what you call it. Call it the cult, call it the left, call it the woke, call it whatever. There's a group of people that are a cult, and that's all that matters.
I see the World Economic Forum being involved in it, trying to manipulate it. It's
Probably.
like technocratic
Absolutely.
cultists. I see that cult for sure. It's one of
It's
many
Greta
cults.
Thunberg attacking the United States, but ignoring China and India. It's
ignoring East Palestine,
Not a single one of these activists showing up to Ohio and saying,
Yeah.
this is what we're talking. No, they don't care at all. It's people like AOC making up fake problems and lying about what happened in the Capitol. It's that video of the dude with the earpiece pulling people into the Capitol. Did you see this video?
I've heard about it.
There's a video of a man with an earpiece, and he's grabbing people and throwing them into the building, and a woman's yelling at him saying, why are you pulling us in here? You're forcing us in here. And he's got an earpiece in.
Did you see the video today that came out with the police officer saying he was screaming, they set us up? I mean, it's standing right outside the Capitol. They set us up here. We've
That's
been
why they
left
didn't
out
want to
hang.
release it.
Exactly. I mean, and the fact that hasn't made national news is an outrage, right?
I imagine Tucker Carlson will be handling that. fairly
he
shortly.
should. Somebody
Who has
should.
the-
Is that available to watch right now?
Not
It's
yet.
it's
on
on
Twitter.
on
It's on Twitter. Yeah.
The issue is you have a cult. The cult doesn't care. The country is split between the cult and everybody else. And everybody else includes traditional liberals
Yeah.
who consider themselves disaffected, libertarians, conservatives, and even anti-war leftists who are economically left but don't adhere to the
So
establishment
how do we
cult.
unify that group of people to
I don't-
avoid the need for a national divorce? Because if you want to call it the silent majority or just people that don't think they have anything in common,
The silent
highlighting-
majority are the Biden voters. Trump
Yeah.
supporters think they're the silent majority, but they're not. They're the active, paying attention people. Most people are not paying attention. They're silent because they don't care. They don't want to be involved.
See, I feel like that Bill Maher video about that he put out recently about where he likened the woke to Maoists and the Cultural Revolution
Yes.
Yep.
in China, and acknowledge that there is a cultural revolution going on here. I think that is the kind of impactful video from the kind of person that can actually make the average normie realize what's going on. Because your average person, I think your average person still thinks that communism is bad. Generally, they don't. I think that.
But they don't know what communism is.
When
is
they
the problem.
hear socialism, they think Medicare for all. When they hear communism, they think, Mao Zedong and Stalin. I think that's generally the way that people react. And I think that if you can get people to make the connection between woke kids at colleges screaming in their professors' faces with the Red Guard screaming in the faces of the Chinese professors. If you can make that connection, that will do significant damage to the woke agenda or whatever you want to call it.
If you've not listened to James Lindsay on this subject, you need to go do it, because
I am screaming about James Lindsay.
Yeah, me too,
time.
brother.
Yeah.
And then he has been talking about Mao and the Cultural Revolution for 3 or 4 years. Him and Michael O'Fallon over at Sovereign Nations have been talking about this for a long time, and I'm glad that Bill Maher finally picked it up. But it's going to take more people like that to highlight the exact same process that happened in China in the 60s and the 70s is happening now. And if we can show them the evergreen, like with Brett Weinstein, the evergreen video, that opened up my eyes. I'm like, holy crap. So we need more Bill Mahers who actually have some of the ears and the eyes of the left, to bring on James Lindsay, to bring on these people that really know this subject and can show it to us.
This is why I have been harping on building culture more than anything else.
Yeah.
And it's very, very difficult, but that's the path forward. When I had these industry guys in skateboarding tell me, oh, you better watch out. If you do skateboarding, bad things are going to happen. Nothing bad happened. They need to maintain the fear that if we enter cultural spaces, we will be physically harmed, so that we don't. Because when we do, all of a sudden, young people are looking up to us and they're like, hey, that's really cool. I want to do that too. So the biggest threat to the woke machine is all of us and everyone listening making culture, performing shows. Go to a venue, write a song called FJB, and then sing the song on stage at a venue, and just be bold with it and be like, that's how I think. It is what it is.
And write a whole record called "Victim of the New Disease" about communism.
Can I just say something about this? Because I've been involved in the arts my whole life, music teacher, all of that. The organized music education in this country has been completely taken over. And what people don't understand is that music is the most effective form of propaganda that you can have. And I use this loosely, but you have people that sing in church together for a reason, because when you're all singing for the same message, they've actually they've attested this. Your heartbeat starts to beat at the same time. Literally, because you're singing in the same rhythm, with the same sounds, with the same people. I think it's one of the main reasons they wanted to shut down churches during COVID, because, where 2 or 3 are gathered in my name, there I am also, it's from the Bible. But the arts in this society have been completely taken over. When you're talking about the American Choral Directors Association or the American Band Directors Association, that their whole job is to knit together teachers from across the country in public and private schools alike. And now they're unifying behind this woke message, behind this Maoist version of the way that they want society to be. And it's very scary. So I would encourage Republicans, if you're listening at all, or conservatives, libertarians, classical liberals, let's get involved in organized arts in the school level. I think it could be very effective in helping us turn back the woke monster that we're seeing prevailing over our country.
I also want to acknowledge the danger of cults in general, like within my own ranks, within the people. Like right now, I identify with a lot of people that consider themselves Christians. They go to Christian church in some way. And I'm looking at Joel Osteen. Osteen, is that how you pronounce his name? This guy is a mega church pastor or preacher. He made like $54 million last year.
Don't get me started on that. My father, my parents came out of that situation where it was the name it, claim it, word of faith movement. And they are crooks. I mean, they're crooks, because my father had nothing. My mother had nothing. And they would give over their last, not to their local church that could help them, but they would hand it over to Kenneth Copeland or Joel Osteen or whomever and say, well, I've done my part and the Lord's going to give me a new car. And they died with nothing. They died with absolutely nothing at a young age, because they were putting their faith into something that was just, a mile wide and an inch deep. And so they're crooks. I'm a Christian, but I have something very visceral against people like that take advantage of poor people through their faith. I think it's what led us into the woke movement as we know it today, is that kind of belief.
Part of what made Jesus irate as well from the stories is the people trying to profit off of the message. I think that, and it's tax-free. It's tax-free because it's a religion. Joel can take their money and he doesn't have to pay taxes on it. It's complete. I mean, that is what an abuse of.
And they walk into his church expecting to get something of depth. And what they get is a nice, frou-frou, oh, I feel good as I leave kind of a television church show. And they get nothing of depth from the Christian faith in that. And it has done, I think it's done as much as anything the left has done to to put people down the disaffected road with Christian values, with some of the values that our country was founded on that actually helped keep us strong. So I'm right with you on that. I have nothing good to say about the Osteens. But
Yeah, that brings a lot of people from, if you want to call it the left, to the right. To the reason is when people are willing to acknowledge the flaws in their own faith, that the business that has erupted around their faith, that's like people that aren't even involved are like, wow, maybe this person is actually cogent.
I think there's a simple distinction between Christianity, for instance, and wokeism in terms of ideology.
Oh,
And
of
it's that
course.
one seeks, with Christianity, there is something beyond you as a human being and beyond everybody. With wokeness, you're God. It's you. You are owed things. The world must change for you. It's yin yang almost. It's the belief that there is something greater than me, and so it's not about me. And then there's the woke side where it's I'm owed and I deserve.
Well, and again, go listen to James Lisney, what he's talking about Gnosticism, right? It's a hermetic, it grabs a hold of a faith, whether it's Christianity, Islam, it doesn't matter what it is, and it infests it to a certain extent and turns it, the doctrines and everything, towards what its political motive is. So it is
it
inherent.
wears your ideology like a skin suit.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so go listen to James Lindsay and what he's talking about Gnosticism, because what you're describing there is exactly what he's talking
That's
about.
the Malthusian. I like that. I actually identify with that kind of thing. Like, I am God. There is a God beyond me, and I am God. Together, and we make God. That Jesus was God, yet there was God
But
without
you're not
him.
Jesus.
It's-
And so,
it's different.
No.
Yeah, it is different.
It's very much the same. God flows through us. It animates our bodies, so we are part of it.
But
so
when you
can
start
say,
looking
I am.
at yourself as somebody who can be on the plane as God, then you have nothing beyond yourself to search for, and therefore the only thing that matters is what you care about in the moment. That's what James has been talking about a lot, is that if you see yourself as a version of God or as on equal par with God, then you're automatically just going to completely divorce yourself from anything natural in the world. You're going to say, well, if I feel like a girl, I am a girl, right? And if my son says he feels like a girl, then he is a girl, and I'm going to make him into one. That's what it turns into if you see yourself as that level of deity.
Yeah, it doesn't end there. It doesn't end with I'm God and therefore I control reality. It's I am God and God is I am. It's both. If you can't maintain both thoughts at the same time, you're doomed to chaos. You've got to understand that you're part of it.
But the minute you start thinking of yourself as God in any form, then you've lost the plot, I think, because there is a God and then there is you.
Would you say that to Jesus Christ? If he was
Absolutely.
sitting here? You tell me he'd lost the plot?
Well, Jesus Christ, I believe, was a different
Part of the
situation, right? I mean, he was divinely inspired. He was here for a purpose, and then he left, right? He died on the cross for our sins, and then he rose again, and then he said, "This is the faith that you need to be saved in the afterlife and beyond." But he didn't say, "Hey, Ian, you can be just like me. You're the only begotten Son of God too." No, he said, "You are one with me, but you are not me." Right? You must live towards a goal. You're never going to be perfect, right? But striving for perfection is what makes life worth living. Making the mistakes and then repenting and then doing better the next time is what makes life worth living. But just seeing that no matter what I do is right because I'm God, that's a completely different thing.
We're going to go to Super Chats. If you haven't already, would you kindly smash that like button, subscribe to this channel, share the show with your friends, and head over to timcast.com, become a member. Because once we wrap up this show around 10 p.m., we will kick off the live, uncensored, members-only portion of the show. After that show wraps, the recording remains on the website to be watched at your leisure at any time and will be part of a massive library of existing content. The only difference between what we used to do and what we're doing now is that you can watch as we record. So before we would record it, then upload it. Now we'll just live stream it, and then it's boom, there forever for you to watch. So hang out live, you can chat. We're setting up a Discord so that you can not only chat for the members only live show, but even call in. We can do a voice channel where you can actually talk to the people on the show. It'll be a lot of fun. And like with radio, I imagine we're gonna be telling a lot of people, you gotta turn the computer down. We're getting echo. All right. Hillbilly Clinton says animals and crops are dying in East Palestine, and it's due to the government releasing chemicals and trying to be covert about it. Now, will you finally say MK Naomi? I don't know. What does that mean?
I don't know.
That Naomi Wolf?
MK Naomi?
MK Naomi.
No idea.
Say it. Say it. Say her name.
Well, I did. All right. Smoking Man Vibe says, I bet Biden knows the Cavs, but ask him about Ohio and he knows nothing. He is such a liar. Isn't that right, Ian?
Oh, I'm sorry. I was just reading about MK Naomi, dude. It's a CIA research program. Have you heard of this? Chemical warfare program. From the 50s to the 70s. This is nuts. I'm sorry. What was that last super chat? Was that directed at me?
Says, I bet Biden knows the Cavs, but ask him about Ohio and he knows nothing. He's such a liar. Isn't that right, Ian?
Yeah. Well, he loves Ohio, but don't ask him about it because he'll tell you he doesn't know anything about Ohio. Not a lie, though.
Not a
On second thought says, which is harder for Joe elected Biden? Stairs or a complete sentence? Answers, please.
Yes.
And then a bogus emoji. A little bogus emoji.
You guys want to
Yes,
see a little
yes.
Buckus tonight? I
That's
was thinking
my
about
answer.
bringing Bucko up a little late night.
Little bogus on
Yeah,
the
I'll
show.
go grab Bucko. I'll be back.
All right. Powder PZ says he had balloons tied to his gun and Biden shot the balloons with missiles from an F-22. That explains it. The balloon story was because it was carrying the weapon there.
Well,
Nambizzle, a.k.a. James, says, I watch in the AM at work, gets me through the toughest part of my day. As a letter carrier, I just wanted to say I wore my SSJ Trump shirt today before I knew Trump was going to Ohio. Awesome. The Super Saiyan Trump shirt we made. Yeah, Kamaga. I went to an AI and I was like Donald Trump going Super Saiyan, and it's Trump yelling, and his hair is very nice. All right. Okamihoro says, do everyone an actual service by covering where the individual is shot. This fact matters a great deal. In the chest. That's right.
yeah.
Copper Lobo says, Norfolk Southern Railroad is owned by Vanguard, BlackRock, and JP Morgan. Yeah, but like to be fair, they own everything. So
That's true.
Brandon Hampson says, Tim, in regards to the unalive case, you're missing the obvious. The guy shot himself with a ghost gun. Aha. Gotta ban him. Red Wing Blackbird says, did Kurt Cobain have connections to the Clintons? Ooh. Yeah, that explains it. Yeah.
Yes.
Bobcat says, Gary Webb or Danny Casolaro. Granted, most journalists who investigate the CIA, mob, DOJ, trinary tend to commit suicide in impossible ways fairly often. And they do because the alphabet agencies want you to know that they can say whatever they want and make it obvious.
It's a warning.
That's right. All right. TNT for you says, Tim, come on, man. The $500 million isn't coming from our tax money. It's just being printed for future generations to pay for. Technically, it's also just being extracted from your buying power, from your savings. So when they print money and then give it to Ukraine and they buy stuff with it, you work hard, you put money in the bank, the government then just fabricates money to give to someone else. They don't work hard, they spend it on war, but that money gets spent back in the United States, causing inflation, and your ability to buy things for your hard work goes down. It's an invisible tax where they're extracting your hard work and you don't see it happening. That was the trick. One day some dude said, listen, if we go to all the people and tell them to give us $1, they're going to get really angry. If we just make the dollars, we extract from their labor because their debt is the guarantee for this money. Meaning the fact that you're willing to accept these dollars in the first place means the money has value to somebody else. And then the more we flood the market, the more we extract from your buying power based on your labor. So you're giving your money away, but you don't see it happening. And that's how modern monetary policy works. We got, you just ran under the table. You got a Bocus. What's he doing?
Sleeping.
He was sleeping. You woke him up.
A little nap, but I thought I'd bring him up.
Well, you got to close the
He's
door.
looking good.
Yeah, he looks great.
Where'd he go?
Yeah, he's down here.
Phil's got him.
He's just standing there doing Bocus stuff. We're going to need some Bocus emojis in the check. You want to get him on the table?
Get it going.
You got him, Mr. Bocus.
I'll bring him up.
You're kidding.
No, he's not having it.
Yeah.
All right. Lord Lucas Ward says, where is the bloody UFO? Ian with a one roll. Oh, there's Mr.
UFO.
Bocus.
Hi, Bucko.
Wow, he's looking real good.
Yeah, he's been dancing
Hopefully
around.
those stem cells have been...
I brought him on last Thursday. I think it was shortly after he'd gotten an injection, so he was exhausted that day. But this is, he just woke up.
He's looking all right.
Well, I was listening to the Daily Wire morning cast on the UFO situation, and they were saying that they had an explanation for all of these supposed UFOs that the Pentagon was, calling UFOs at the point. It was one was from like a bottle cap company, like where they were just putting up a balloon or something like that. But they had an explanation, and none of them had to do with aliens or anything like that. But they were sure enough very cryptic in the moment. While all this stuff in East Palestine was going on, to make you think, it could have been a UFO.
We got all the Bocus emojis in the chat.
They love you, Bucko.
There he is. He's just
You're doing a good,
sitting
such a
there
good job, bro.
doing bogus stuff.
Come here, Booker.
He's ruling the table right now.
We were told he'd be dead in a week.
Wow.
Yeah,
That's
and then we
amazing.
got him medicine, hormone treatment, fluid injections. It was very expensive, and now he's getting stem cells, and he seems to be he's getting a little thicker. He was really gaunt. He was fading, and now he seems to be coming back. I think
Gained about a half a pound, half
Yeah,
a kilogram,
half a pound.
It was a fourth of a pound the first week, then 0.02 kilograms the second week.
Wow.
I measured him lately.
I think the stem cells might be working. I think the hormones in the fluid probably helped. One of the reasons for the weight loss may have been the anemia. So we don't know how much longer he'll have, even if his treatment is working. But the stem cells may be what give him a few more years.
He's a long cat.
Yeah.
Yeah, dude.
Yeah,
This
Mr.
guy's
Bokus.
Legit.
All right, what do we
Wisdom
got
in those
here?
eyes.
Austin Brown says, podcast of the Lotus Eaters has been showing the absurdity of the UK situation. 1 million plus a year coming into a country the size of New York State. Jeez. Yep. Jeez. David Toronto says, so Tim, we should leave them in Florida, Texas, etc. No, my point was Texas should have the right to deport people. It's that simple. Texas and Florida should deport them back to their home countries. There you go.
Yeah.
How you going? How's it going, Mr. Bokus? What are you doing?
But
Thirsty.
what is preventing them from just doing like California does and
put it right.
ignoring the federal law on it?
Letting them in.
Yeah.
Because,
I mean,
the issue with deporting is that it's an issue for another country.
Yeah.
Texas can't talk
Yeah.
with. I think you got to put a little bit more water in there. No, he's got it. Oh yeah, look, he's thirsty. Is he still drinking a lot of water like crazy?
No.
Because that was a sign that his kidneys were failing. He kept drinking
Yeah,
water.
I think the new food has offered him better hydration.
When he was even with the new food, he was drinking water like crazy. I think it's the stem cells.
And he's still getting fluid every other day. Shout out to Kim. I mean, it takes a tribe to raise a young one like this. Kara's been doing a fantastic job with him too. He absolutely loves her.
All right. Pat Meadows says, did Biden observe Ash Wednesday? Yes, he did.
yes, he did.
Yeah, he had the ash on his forehead.
I thought it was a bruise from him falling down, but it was the ash.
Falling up.
Yeah, falling up.
Falling
Excuse
up,
me.
that's
Sorry,
right.
sorry.
Well, Biden's ashes were made of burnt, cremated babies, though. Cremated aborted babies.
Brado Jacko says open borders cannot work with a welfare state, election corruption, and zero social cohesion with no understanding of American civics or the Constitution. Agreed. Mm-hmm. He's really jamming his face in there. I think he needs
You
more
wanna give
water.
him more?
Yeah.
Get it, bucko. Oh, that looks good.
Oh, he's a
Very
he's a
nice.
thirsty friend. There you go. Matt McCartney says the Constitution does not apply to anyone in the country. A tourist or non-resident immigrant can't buy a gun here under any legal circumstances. The Constitution absolutely 100% does apply to anyone in the country. The fact that they don't let people buy guns means they're infringing on your rights. But it does. There have been numerous Supreme Court cases about the Fourth Amendment and the First Amendment, and basically all the amendments. The Constitution applies to everybody. It just means that at this point, they're infringing on almost every element of the Constitution.
Constitution is a list of no's for the government. It doesn't tell the people that they're not allowed
Right.
to do stuff.
Exactly.
So
All right. Ryan Ellis says Cali will never turn red. I deliver medication to halfway homes and dementia hospitals. They let those people vote. Guess who they vote for?
Yeah.
California was red up until what, like 90?
1988 was the
Yeah.
last time it voted for a Republican. Was
Crazy.
George H.W. Bush.
Yep.
But there's a systemic method that they use to turn it what it is today. And the scary part about that is I see the same thing happening in Oklahoma right now.
What is it?
Where you have, it starts in the universities where you have this. In Oklahoma, they have at OU, they have what's called the strategic research verticals, where you have the university with a plan to build public-private partnerships beyond the walls of the university to create or to push an agenda that really lines up almost point by point with the WEF. And right now, it's all around ESG. And what they do is they start implementing programs like, for example, in Oklahoma, they're doing criminal justice reform. Well, there are some good parts about that, but what the left sees is, wait a minute, now there's a red state we can go to, right? That's cheaper to live and import a bunch of Californians from California into Oklahoma, and all of a sudden you just start turning the state blue. And then you just start giving more and more people more subsidies, more government assistance, and over time, over 30 years, you end up having California. And that's kind of what happened. Chris Rufo covered this before he started covering CRT about how there was kind of a flag that they threw up saying, hey, look, homeless people come here, right? What they did in San Francisco, what they did in LA. We're going to build you low-cost housing. Almost nobody lives in that low-cost housing. It's still sitting there, right? And lots of people made money off of building it, but all of the homeless came there, right? And now they get, free food, they get free cell phones, they get all these other government assistance, and they vote. Because people go out and hand them the ballot and then grab it and bring it in and turn it in. And that's what you're starting to see little by slowly, especially like in the college towns in Oklahoma. And it's designed to spread out. And I've been trying to warn people there, here, guys, all of these things that sound really good, that weaponize your empathy, that, this is to help people, isn't always exactly what it seems. So we should watch it.
Yeah, y'all should watch Yellowstone.
Yes.
Because some people are like, don't spoil the show, don't spoil the show. Okay, I won't spoil the show, but a lot of this stuff it plays a role in the show. Mm-hmm. The simple version is you've got people who are from Montana, which there's, the joke is no one's from Montana. And then you have people from New York and California who are liberal elites with lots of money who use it as a playground. Mm-hmm. And there's conflict.
Well, and in Oklahoma, they just brought in Google and gave them charge over collecting data for the state, with Chrome pads and things like that. So it's a hairy scheme because you get a lot of money, you get a lot of that tide that raises all ships, but the tide seems to be really like communist red.
Normies Get Out says, look at the liberal states that get blasted by the Supreme Court for violating the Constitution and their 2A laws. They just change the law slightly and reapply it and rinse and repeat. That's right. When they shut the churches down and the courts, I think it was a court in New York, said, hey, you can't do that. They went, okay, I'll just issue a new executive order doing the exact same thing, and then you'll have to sue me for that too. Mm-hmm. Phil's hanging out with Mr. Bocus over there.
I'm popular.
Mr. Bocus. Mr. Bocus is enjoying himself. All right, where we got? Lepardi says convention of states to throw California out. Yes, a convention of states where what are we on? Amendment 28? California is no longer a member state of the union. Bye.
Someone was saying
that's better than a full national divorce.
It might have been Thomas Massey. We had a politician on, and I was asking about not national divorce, but convention of states, because I keep thinking like that's a solution, that's a way forward. And I was warned. He warned me that it could be weaponized.
Absolutely, it needs to be. Now I don't know the details. You can follow at COS Project on Twitter, and they have all the deets about the progress of the effort for a convention. It has to be limited in scope, and the delegates delegates from the several states have to abide by that. So if something is brought up that is outside of the scope agreed upon, everyone has to get up and leave. And or something to that effect. There are ways to put guardrails on it. I'm not the expert that can tell you the details about it, but yes, it is definitely. I mean, it's an extreme measure. We have, even to amend the Constitution is actually fairly extreme because the amendment process is intentionally rigorous. It's not supposed to be easy to do these things because we have states that have the capacity and they're empowered to pass laws for the several states. Each state can make basically whatever law they want. So to make an amendment to the Constitution is supposed to be a big deal. The fact that people say, oh, we should just do this or just do that, the federal government should do that, that all this stuff is outside of the federal government's initial charter. Like the things that the federal government is empowered to do are listed in the Constitution. The things that the federal government is specifically prevented from doing are listed in the Bill of Rights. And then any changes are in the amendments that follow the Bill of Rights. And they're supposed to be hard because of the way that our government is supposed to protect individual rights. But the administrative
state has taken advantage of that.
Absolutely.
Right? Because that's, there's Vivek Ramaswamy has said that he wants to have an 8-year term for people in the administrative state. That if you serve 8 years, you're done.
I like
right?
it. Term limits. Term limits for politicians is not as attractive to me as term limits on bureaucrats.
Exactly.
That's
that you should
really
not be able to work in a 3-letter unconstitutional apparatus for that long because you will amass power just by being there for that long.
Yeah.
And so I really like that idea. I think that I think that's the direction we should go.
I had not heard that, but that is to me seems like a far better idea than the idea that you get rid of politicians every,
Well, I think you should get rid of them both. I mean, I think you should have term limits across the board, but you shouldn't be allowed to camp in the CIA, the FBI, the IRS for all of these years and amass power and push your political agenda under the radar. There should be an apparatus where the president can't even fire a lot of these people, which is ridiculous.
That's ridiculous.
You know what I mean? But at the very least, let's have a constitutional amendment or a law or statutory law that says your 8 years are up, you find a new job. You know what I mean?
All right. Disobey says the Fed offered all of the states several million to expand red flag laws. Kansas was offered 2.6 million. I wonder if this is part of Biden's plan to help with the spill.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, I can see that they would want some sort of like red flag thing. They're like, we give for you, you give for us. But see, they're in a state of disaster right now, so that should
that's
be
the
no
perfect
quid pro quo.
opportunity for them to take advantage.
It's crazy. That's like,
Yeah. All right. Merrick Miller says, don't eat any what chefs want products in Colorado. They are ordering employees to perform illegal and unethical policies and procedures that are a threat to public health. Interesting. I'm not familiar with that. Hillbilly Clinton says, but Biden says you can't have weapons like us. Planes and nukes are what people would need in a civil war. Otherwise, you would be conquered. Guess I'm paraphrasing, but it's close. Yeah, and maybe he has an answer for, I don't know, Vietnam or Afghanistan.
Yeah.
Yeah, because the reality is an F-22 can't occupy a street corner.
A lot of dudes named Muhammad in Afghanistan are like, yo, I think you're wrong, man.
Yeah, and now they have all of the American equipment that
Thanks
they
for
left
the
behind.
night vision, bro.
Yeah.
Hillbilly
the
Clinton says
PBS
again,
31.
how much do I have to donate to your machine for you to notice me? Which machine? What are you talking about?
I notice you.
We see you.
That's right.
Hillbilly.
I like the name, too. Hillbilly is a good name.
NVal90 says, Ian needs 6 more Chaos Emeralds to go supersonic.
Okay. I've got emeralds downstairs. You know what? I will bring an emerald up tomorrow. That's a good one.
I always thought it was funny that in Dragon Ball Z, the brown-eyed, black-haired dude, when he became super powerful, he turned blonde and he got blue eyes.
Racist.
No, for real. Like, what was up with that? And then Sonic was the same way. When Sonic went supersonic, he would turn gold, and it's like, okay, gold, I guess, but like Goku in Dragon Ball Z is like, I'm gonna become really powerful. And then his hair turns blonde and his eyes turn blue. I'm like, there's something weird about that.
Just like Aryan Nation.
Yes, something weird about that, huh? They all do it.
Start speaking German.
Naruto is from Japan, right?
Yeah.
It's leftovers from the war.
But Naruto's not Dragon Ball Z. They don't go Super Saiyan in that.
Okay, my bad.
In Naruto, he just like the nine-tailed fox spirit.
So is Dragon Ball Z made in Japan?
Dragon Ball Z is Japan, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
And the funny thing is, anime in Japan is like, man, I can't remember what neighborhood I was in, but they have like big billboards and art of Goku and Lupin the Third and other characters that have been around since the 70s or 80s. To them, their cartoon characters are like movie stars almost. But I guess it's also kind of like Mickey Mouse or Donald Duck. The crazy thing though is in America, our famous cartoon characters are, like what is Mickey Mouse famous for doing? Like driving a steamboat or something?
Yeah.
and then Donald Duck complains about a lot of stuff, I guess. Their cartoon characters are famous for, like flying, blowing, like saving planets and, doing martial arts, or like I guess Lupin the Third was a thief. I don't know
Well, our more modern cartoons like X-Men and things like that, but I guess they were comic books first.
We have Mickey Mouse everywhere.
Yeah, that's true.
They have Goku everywhere.
Yeah.
Goku is like flying around beating people up. He's a good guy. He's not a bad guy. He's beating up the bad guys. But Mickey Mouse doesn't do anything like that. Mickey Mouse is just going, or whatever that's all about.
Japan's so awesome.
Yeah, it's a cool place.
Have you been there before?
Do you know they have they have
I was
stores?
Good.
They have whack-off stores.
Yeah, they do.
What, we do it in the store?
Yeah.
You go in the store, and then they have like a variety of objects and towels, and you go into a room, and it's like the weirdest thing I've ever seen, but it's like a normal thing in Japan.
It reminds me of Idiocracy, where you get a latte.
Yeah.
Right?
Dude, you don't even understand what like Japan. They're freaky deaky, man.
It's weird. Yeah, I was in Japan in 2011 at the earthquake.
Whoa.
Oh
really?
wow.
Yeah. Yeah, I was on CNN. They interviewed me and stuff, yeah.
Oh,
Is
so
it-
you're
I
in
was
the
in
deep
Tokyo.
state.
What? Yeah, I'm on that. Yeah.
All right, Bucko's had enough for the night. I'm going to say goodbye. And
Mr. Bokus.
ready, Lucas? You ready to go?
And Mr. Bokus is off.
Oh, sorry, buddy. Let's roll.
You know,
Is he
I've never
knifing
been
you?
in an earthquake,
Oh,
but I
I've
was in the deep south in about an hour from New Orleans during Katrina.
Ooh.
So yeah, it was rough. It was rough.
All right, let's see. We got audio somatic says, hey, I saw Jordan B. Peterson in Everett, Washington on the 19th. He announced a new group he is helping to put together that is going to combat the WEF. Look into it, please. I think we've talked about it. But he wants to do it in London. It's like, why London? I don't know. Seems like a bad place to do it.
It does.
You know, like Charlestown, West Virginia seems like a good place to do it. And I'm only half kidding. It would be very convenient for me if he did it here. But you've also just got West Virginia. It's the second most MAGA country, MAGA state in the country. That seems to make more sense.
What's the first? Florida? Texas?
No, it's
Oklahoma?
Oklahoma. Is it Oklahoma?
It's got to be close.
No, I think it's Wyoming. Wyoming was the most Trump-supporting state. Yeah. Tyler Price says, Naruto is also blonde hair and blue-eyed, LMAO. That is true. Naruto is blonde with blue eyes. And then I guess the Elric brothers had like reddish eyes. Yeah, they were blonde though. And their dad's name was Hohenheim, so literally it was like a Germanic name. It's so weird. I never understood that. I'm like, why are Japanese people making all these shows about... And then you get Attack on Titan, and like it's all German.
Literally.
Yeah.
Like the buildings and everything.
Yeah.
That's
You know,
weird.
it's kind of weird, you know? They're trying to tell us something? I don't know.
I don't know.
World War II?
Maybe.
Caleb Genre says, North Dakota pumps 1 million barrels of oil a day, or used to. Why does North Dakota only get one House seat? We're an energy powerhouse, plus we grow food. Well, it's called leverage.
Yeah.
You should probably leverage it.
Population.
Yeah,
specifically.
population.
That's
Yeah.
why.
The Badlands.
Because Reason says, I'm not suggesting anyone is famous. However, if you were, and some people on the show are, how do you stay humble? For no reason. Well, Phil, how do you stay humble?
I try not to think of myself as different from anyone else. I mean, I'm very much a normal dude. I do normal dude things. Like I don't do like rock star things. Really, I mean, I don't drink. I don't blow lines. I don't. You know, I'm not into meth. So,
Did you used to be like a crazy rock star?
I used to drink too much. Actually, this month is 5 years. It was 5 years on
Congratulations.
February 14th since I had my last sip of booze. But yeah, I quit drinking because drinking, it didn't do anything positive for me anymore. There are so many reasons I stopped drinking. I can't even begin to get into them. There was literally nothing good that came from drinking, and more bad things than I could ever list off.
But I can imagine beating something like that or stopping something like that. It does help keep you humble because you saw yourself in the worst possible position.
Oh yeah,
like falling down in a face flat in a gutter. That'll humble you.
Oh yeah,
I mean,
I tell you what, that there is nothing that humbles you more than waking up and being like, oh God, I did say it.
So someone chatted. I don't know if there's a super chat. Someone chatted. Edward Elric had blue eyes. Yes, it's Super 503 Dank says the Elric brothers both had blue eyes, which is weird since you know their dad. No, they don't. The Elric brothers have yellowish hazel eyes, I guess you'd call it. Yeah, but just whatever. I'm being pedantic.
I'm colorblind, so I'm really triggered by all this. So
Japanese people really like this concept of when you become powerful, you get blonde hair and blue eyes. That's all I'm saying. I don't know why.
I don't know why.
What's that all about?
Nervous.
Dalton says.
Disavow.
Dalton says, do you think the military, majority Republicans, are willing to fight in a war Biden has made a point to happen? I think U.S. military folk will get out draft time. Yes, perhaps. I don't know, though.
It's a hell no from me, bro.
I don't think that
well, Steve Dace just the other night said absolutely not.
I think
right?
Steve Dace said it best. I haven't heard someone speak out against a war like that, and since like clips of dudes in Vietnam.
I just had my first daughter, my first child, and I can't imagine. I'm right there with him. I'm not sending, especially our daughters. I mean, come on. There's no way I'm sending anybody to fight and die over there.
I think that the Biden administration intends or would intend on Ukrainians doing most of the footwork and doing essentially the same thing that they had done in Afghanistan for the last 4 years of the occupation. Special forces, some direct action guys, but mostly Ukrainians, and then drones.
And then lots and lots of materials.
Yep, lots of materials.
Military-industrial complex,
yep.
right?
Yeah, because that's profitable, and it keeps the population in the U.S. happy because you don't get a lot of body bags. So you get a bunch of dollars that get pumped into all the states because of the way that the military industrial complex has broken up the production of everything. The F-35 is made in like every state in the country.
Yep.
Every state has a part that they make. So the government, and they do that with all sorts of different products that the military industrial complex produces.
It sounds like sustainability.
Yeah,
like the WEF. Right?
They spread it across. Well, they spread it across the country because Congress people are like, oh, I want to get a little piece for my district. So they go ahead and they have all the production of stuff spread across the country. You have very few Americans coming home in body bags and stimulating the U.S. economy by pumping money into it all across the country. It's a win-win. War is a win-win for the government, especially modern war.
The University of Oklahoma is explicitly, it's in its strategic research vertical, says that, aerospace and defense, it's specifically having to do with weather. I don't know exactly how that works, but it's invested deeply, heavily, and this is a public state-funded university.
Or like controlling the weather to destroy your opponent?
Or individual carbon footprint trackers, right?
Yeah.
Things
well,
like
yeah.
that.
Then because then they can tax your carbon. They can prevent you from doing things in the real world because you've used up your carbon.
Right.
You've used up your allotment for carbon. So and it could be whether it be everyone gets a large amount or more than likely everyone's going to get a very, very small amount. And if you have a social credit system, that's going to be connected to your carbon usage, and they can basically have a digital gulag where they keep you locked in your home or locked in your 15-minute city and you're not allowed to go anywhere. You're allowed to, but you can't get anywhere.
Or you can't charge your electric car.
Yeah, because you don't have enough carbon. You can't have enough carbon. And what will end up happening is that people will figure out ways to sell carbon credits, and there'll be a black market for carbon. I guarantee that, because big companies are going to have carbon credits that people will figure out ways to siphon off. There'll be a whole new economy selling carbon to people that have lots of money, and it'll still be rich people doing whatever the F they want, while the poor and the middle class gets decimated. There'll be fewer in the middle class, and the poor are going to be stuck in the pod.
All right, we'll read one more here. Clef the Misfit says, Akira Toriyama has said the reason Goku and others in Dragon Ball Z are blonde as Super Saiyans is because he got sick of coloring in their hair.
That's awesome.
right.
I believe it. I believe it. All right, everybody, if you haven't already, would you kindly smash that like button? Smash it! And subscribe to this channel. Share the show with your friends. If you really do like it, it's the best way to help. And become a member at timcast.com, because we are going to launch the members only live portion of the show. It's now live. That means once the live is done, it will exist on the website in the archive forever. You can watch it anytime, same as this podcast. But if you want to hang out live, you can do so at timcast.com, which will be up in about 10 minutes. And then moving forward, hopefully by next week, maybe even tomorrow, we will have a Discord, which is a chat server where you can sign up, chat with people all day, every day, and then even call into the show in the members only portion. So again, smash that like button. You can follow the show at Timcast IRL. You can follow me personally at Timcast. Mark, do you want to shout anything out?
Yeah, follow me on my YouTube channel at UnwokablePod. That's without an E in the middle there. And you can follow me on Twitter, Rumble, those places. I also got a Substack. It's unwokable.substack.com. You can follow me there, and I'd really appreciate it. Come out and hit that subscribe button for me too. It'd be cool.
What's up? I am Phil That Remains on Twitter. I am Phil That Remains Official on Instagram. The band is All That Remains. Check us out. We do fun stuff. Play metal. It's sick.
Yeah. Ian Crossland, what's up, everybody? Follow me at iancrossland.net if you want to. Mark, that was really fun.
Yeah, man.
I like talking about theology.
Yeah, it's fun.
And God, that's very much enjoyable.
Yeah, you should come on my show and let's talk about it.
Okay. Let me know when. Hit me on Twitter or
I will.
something. And the UFO, in case you're wondering, is here and will be spun in the future. We just had a little bit of fun with it. Who was that yesterday we had on there?
Wheezy F baby.
The one and only. Anyway, this is an aquamarine. In case anyone's wondering, it's refracting the light from below. Thought it looked pretty cool. All right, see you later.
Yeah, we've been putting interesting things on the UFO thing, so I'll take credit for that. Sorry, Ian.
You win.
Yeah, I'm at Serge.com on Twitter. And, Phil is motioning to me to say tomorrow we will be on the Pop Culture Crisis podcast.
I forgot to tell it.
Yeah. It'll be fun. That'll be during the daytime. I think it's like 2 o'clock. 3 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. Check us out there. See you guys later.
And we'll be live over at timcast.com. If you go to the homepage, in about 10 minutes, you will see the members only live Click it and you can watch. There's comment system. It's not too great just yet, but come hang out with us and it will improve in the future. Thanks for hanging out, and we'll see you all in a few minutes.